And you know what, Matt? At the last board meeting, my face never showed.
Okay,
It never did. I mean,
see what
people
we can
were
come up with.
saying, I mean, I could see my, and I didn't realize it at the last, they say, we could.
No on.
Okay.
All right. I'll keep watching it.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
I can see you right now, Miss Carlotta, if that helps.
I didn't hear you.
I can see you right now, Miss Carlotta, if that helps.
Well, I'm saying at the last school board meeting, at some point, it was just a blank space for me.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
They could hear me, but they couldn't see me. So.
Right, is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, President Mamala, when you're ready.
Good evening. I would like to welcome all to our Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 virtual regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees. May we all stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. Trustee Miller.
Present.
Trustee Candelaria.
Present.
Trustee Zulno.
Present.
Trustee King.
We're here.
And Trustee Mamala is also present. Let the record reflect that all 5 trustees are present and the superintendent of schools. Item number 2, anti-racism resolution.
President Mamala, what you have in front of you is a resolution. Really, they are our core beliefs of the school city of Hammond. But just to reiterate during this time of our commitment to not just being content with not personally being racist, but as a school system, as a corporation, as a district, with being anti-racist and rooting out all of the different areas of injustice that that are in our community and in our school community. So what you have before you is that. I don't know if any other trustees would like to speak as to what the resolution means to them.
Madam President,
Trustee Zulno.
could we have someone read the resolution?
Manny should read it as secretary.
All right. Should I start now?
Yes.
It would be great.
Okay. Resolution of the School Board of Trustees of the School City of Hammond emphasizing the importance of an equitable and accepting learning environment free of discrimination. Whereas the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota has sparked a discussion about racial oppression across the globe. And whereas Mr. Floyd and others in our country have fallen victim to repeated systemic injustice. And whereas all schools have the responsibility to ensure each student receives a high quality education and eliminate all inequities in access to opportunities. And whereas achieving racial equity requires proactive and continuous work. And whereas School City of Hammond is committed to cultivating an equitable learning environment that accounts for each student's race, sex, gender, color, national origin, citizenship status, disability, religion, ancestry, age, and any classification as protected by law. And whereas this board, as the governing body of the School City of Hammond, has a responsibility to comply with and uphold legislation enacted to ensure a fair and equitable learning environment for all. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the School City of Hammond will remain committed to ensuring a fair and equitable educational environment for all by listening to and lifting up to the underrepresented voices and contributing to elimination or marginalized groups. Be it further resolved that the School City of Hammond and its Board of Education must condemn racism in any form and must also believe that the long-term systemic solution to the problem of implicit bias and racism can and should be addressed by the public school systems in this country through intentional acts to provide equal opportunity for all children to have a high-quality education. That concludes the resolution.
Thank you, Manny.
Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Candelaria.
Thank you.
Now I will ask for a motion to approve the resolution.
Point of order.
Trustee King.
Mr. Miller, I believe you asked each board member how do we feel about this resolution? Before the vote.
It was just a suggestion. It's not up to me, or it could happen if there wants to be discussion, depending how the board wants to do it. But I thought it might be an opportunity for each trustee to vocalize how they're feeling about it. But it's just a suggestion.
I absolutely think this is wonderful. I love it. It speaks volumes. Any of the other trustees have any other comments?
Well, I've got an opinion. I mean, these are very strong words on a piece of paper. We need to put this plan into action. It has to carry across the entire school system. If it stays as a piece of paper, it's meaningless. So let's put it into action.
I agree completely with Trustee Zelno. I'd also like to commend Superintendent Miller for making the suggestion and bringing the resolution to us. I also feel I'm saddened that it took such a tragedy as to what has occurred with Mr. Floyd to bring this to the forefront and to bring it to our table. So I support this resolution 110%.
I totally agree, Trustee Miller and Trustee Zulno. It is a very strong statement and a very much needed statement to our school district. Trustee Candelaria, do you have any comments?
Yes, I agree with this resolution and support it 100%. I think it's a step in the right direction for our school district. We just have to implement changes, everyday changes, in order to reflect our current community right now.
Yes, totally agree. Trustee King, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Trustee Mamala. I concur with Trustee Zuno. Implementation is the key. because otherwise it is just as words on a piece of paper. I would recommend, I didn't have a chance, I didn't see this in time to make any changes when Mr. Miller initially emailed it to us. And the resolution is missing quite a bit. And it's sort of after the fact in terms of things that have occurred just recently within our district and decisions that the board has already made, that most communities within our district feel that systemic racism exists, period. And yes, it's sad that it took the death of George Floyd to bring this to the forefront, but there were several deaths, alike Mr. Floyd, that should have brought it to the forefront before now. I would ask that we table this because it's not enough. When I researched our board policies, we have no board policies on anti-racism. And normally when you do a resolution, it is tied to a policy, and that's when the implementation comes about. Our policies are basically our laws, our guidelines. It has teeth. This basically has no teeth. When I read this and it says, again, there's no policy to back it up. There's no assigned number. There's no signatures for the board to sign. It's not dated. And when I say whereas Mr. Floyd, I certainly can insert several City of Hammond minority employees in that name and inserted in place of Mr. Floyd that feel they have fallen victim to repeated systemic injustice. So we have a whole lot of work to do. I think a committee needs to be put together. We talk about this because, again, like you said, Mr. Juno, it's just a piece of paper. It means nothing. It's not tied to any board policy. When we talk about equitable learning environment, remember what Maywood Elementary School in Lafayette went through with that consolidation. There was no equity in that. It was up until the pandemic that we finally realized they didn't have enough staffing. Their learning environment was totally not sufficient for those young people to learn. We know now that Edgar only have 3 certified teachers in the whole building, and the remaining is substitutes. That's not equitable learning environment. So we have a long way to go before we even attempt to put together a resolution on anti-racism. So I'm asking that we table this, that a committee is put together, that we first do a board policy on anti-racism, something that has teeth, and then we can move forward. Because even among ourselves, there's implicit biases, uh, employees. We have not even gone as far as implementing any kind of racial, diversity training. Way overdue. We have teachers that don't know how to deal with minority students and principals. We need to address this before we start putting something on a piece of paper. So that would be my recommendation, that we table it, put together a committee, work on a policy, and move forward. And I would hope the board would recognize my request.
I would just add that we do have it's not labeled anti-racist, it is labeled anti-discrimination policies. And that has been part of the policy for quite some time.
Absolutely. There are no anti-racism as this is. It has nothing, yes, anti-discrimination, and there are laws on the books, but are we saying we're not following the federal laws and state laws on the book when it comes to racism, systemic racism, white privilege? All of that needs to be addressed.
As Superintendent Miller has stated, we do have an anti-discrimination policy. in place. This is a beginning, a new beginning. We have to start from somewhere. And I think it's important that we start from somewhere and go forward and build on this. So I am going to ask for a motion for the anti-racism resolution as presented.
Madam President,
Trustee Miller.
I believe, like you, it's a start. It's a start. It's a step in the right direction, and I hate to see us wait to implement anything until we are able to expand, the reach of this resolution beyond, as Trustee Zolno said, beyond just paper, just paper and words on paper. So I think we have to start somewhere. And I think this is a great start. It's not the end. This is not a one and done. It's just a start. And for that
No,
reason, I make
it's
the
a start.
motion. I make the motion for the approval of the anti-racism resolution as presented.
Is there a second?
Second, with discussion.
There
Are we
has
doing
been
roll
a
call?
motion. Okay, wait 1 minute, please. There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Discussion.
Trustee King.
Thank you. Will there be a timetable? Otherwise, it means nothing. No one's talked about a timetable in putting this forward. Anti-discrimination policy is totally different from anti-racism. And if you don't understand that, we definitely need a workshop. And we definitely need to come together as one and understand what we're doing here. So is there a timetable, Mr. Miller? I mean, there's no number on this resolution, there's no signature lines, it's not even dated. I mean, it's just a piece of paper, but no structure that a normal resolution would have.
I can,
Timetable. I'm asking,
if you recall at the last meeting, we did have a discussion with Dr. Green about the steps we were taking as a district to address some of these issues. Dr. Green, do you mind sharing what the plan is and some of the steps that we're taking, so this is more than a piece of paper?
We did have originally planned that we were doing a cultural come together type of conference, which was to be held in June, but as we know, COVID kind of knocked all of those things out. So what we have done is we've broken that conference apart and we're having all of those speakers and all of those participants try and join us throughout the year, so that we're not only affecting leadership, but also teachers as well as our staff members, everyone who would like to participate. But there are some parts of it that are mandated, because we do have a strong commitment to what we're trying to do here. We're trying to look at diversity overall, not just looking at only race, but there are a lot of different people in our district who have different problems in dealing with their identity and dealing with people just not understanding who they are. And I think, first of all, we need to understand who each member of our community is, and then we can start to address some of the problems that you speak of.
but that still doesn't give me a timetable.
Actually, it's beginning at the beginning of the year. It's a part of our professional development. And so the timetable is that it begins immediately as soon as we can start meeting and having those trainings together. I think it's very important that you don't just put it online and allow people to click through it. That's not actually training. What that is fulfilling a requirement. And this is such a serious topic that we need to meet. We need to see each other. We need to be able to speak about these things. And I know that Superintendent Miller is also bringing forth our strategic planning. I think that'll be a great process in which to embed some of that so we get the community involved in that, as well as our staff and our teachers and everyone.
Madam President?
One moment, Trustee Zulno. I
Thank you.
totally agree with you, Dr. Green. As a school corporation in our community is very diverse in race, cultures, and gender with our LGBT community. We have to look at everyone. And like I said, this is a start. This is a beginning. Have to start from somewhere. And with the start, then we build on it. Trustee Zulno.
I'm in total agreement with what you just said and what Trustee Miller just talked about. Now, I don't know what the makeup could be, but can we form a subcommittee to review additional areas that we think we need to add to this policy?
No policy.
I think once
That's what I meant.
it's if the policy is passed and if the policy is passed and accepted, then I believe we could start building on it. What we should do, what needs to be done, what areas need to be specifically looked at, what areas have we not looked at in the past that maybe should have looked at in the past. This is a beginning. We have to start from somewhere. And I believe that the superintendent and his administrative staff could then go forward and build on, as you said, subcommittees, public work sessions, groups, but we have to start from somewhere.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Trustee Miller.
as Trustee Blake King said, just a point of clarification, this is a resolution and not a policy.
Correct.
And thank you, Trustee Zuno, for suggesting a subcommittee. Basically, that's what I was saying. But again, somebody tells me, if this is passed, is it gonna be in our archives? You're gonna post it on the website? It needs a resolution number. I mean, I know the format of a resolution, and it definitely is not there. It has to be signed. So I hope we just don't float this piece of paper out here with no signatures, no number, in the right format. Either we're gonna be structured or not.
I don't have any issue. I apologize for not having it in the format that's needed, and we'll get the format corrected before it's published.
So where does it go? On the website, Facebook page? Where is this piece of paper going?
It absolutely should go on both of those. It should run on our social media, and it should run on and be archived on our our School City website.
So moving forward, I have called for a motion. Trustee Miller has seconded them. Is there a second?
We had a second.
Second.
A second.
Zolno seconded.
Zuno seconded. All in favor say aye.
We have to do a roll call.
Okay, I'm sorry. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Trustee Candelaria.
Yes.
Trustee Mamala. Yes. Trustee Zulno.
Yes.
And Trustee King.
No.
Let the record reflect that 4 trustees, trustee Miller, trustee Candelaria, trustee Miller, and trustee Zulno, have voted yes, and trustee King have voted no. The resolution has passed. Item
Trustee
number
Mamalo.
3.
Trustee Mamalo.
Yes.
Thank you. May I add that I am a member of the National Black Council of School Board, and they sent me an email with a racism starter kit with sample resolutions with teeth and resources for Black staff. I would like to forward that to Mr. Miller if the board agrees.
Absolutely. I have no problem with that. The more information, the merrier. We're all working and we're
Thank you.
recognition presentation. Item A, financial presentation.
Trustees, I would like to call Matt Reese, our financial consultant for the monthly financials, and he will also be giving a report on our COVID-related expenses to date.
Well,
Good
how about
evening, everyone.
Okay, Jesus.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can everybody see my screen there with the financial report up on the screen? Okay,
Yes, sir.
excellent. So what we have for you tonight is the May financial report, same format as we've given to you every month since you've had my services to date. This is the education fund. I do want to point out in the education fund, again, we're a positive variance in our expenses by a little over $1.1 million. We have positive cash flow through the month of May at $1.3 million, and revenues are on track at this point. It's important to make a quick comment at this point. I'm sure most of you heard the governor make the announcement that he is promising to hold revenues as promised through the 2020-2021 school year, obviously pending any more huge reductions going into the start of the January of 2021. This is a very positive sign. I do want to make a comment about his statement regarding the allowing the increase to take place in the funding formula for the 2020-2021 school year. This is not new revenue. This is revenue we anticipated in the funding formula coming in when the budget was done a little over a year ago. So it's not new money we're coming into, it's money we expected to already receive as part of the funding formula. That's a quick comment on the revenues from the funding formula. The other fund we normally talk about is the referendum operating fund. You'll notice in the referendum operating fund, we're also a positive expenditure variance of a little over $1 million. So by adding those two together, we're running under budget by just over $2.1 million in the combination of those two funds, which again is a nice place to be as we move forward into the summer. Very little activity. I will comment though on the debt service funds. We did receive, and all the funds that receive property taxes, we did receive an advance draw in May. We'll be anticipating getting another distribution here in the next few days at the end of June for our regular spring distribution. The last fund to talk about is the operation fund. You'll notice it is a negative variance of a little over just under $270,000. But combined with the positive of the referendum operating and the education fund, taken into account, we're still in really good shape to just under a $2 million positive variance for our expenditures through the month of May. So we're doing a nice job in staying under our budget as we proceed through the year. Any questions on this part of the financial report?
No, I have a question when we get to the variance report.
Excellent. Well, here's the variance report. What question would you like to ask?
Under year-to-date expenditures, less transfers, if you go across from education, we're showing percent of budgets are 40.8%. And then we're referring to 1.5% under budget with 1126 payrolls.
Correct. So
something.
no. So the way that we So if you look, the percentage of the budget is 40.8 that we've spent to date. If you
Right.
did 11/26 of the payrolls, that would equal 42.3%. And the simple difference between those percentages is the 1.5% under budget.
Oh, okay. I've got it. Thank you very much.
Any further questions on the financial report? Excellent. Trustee King had asked for a report on the expenditures due to the COVID-19 virus. As part of the FEMA summary grant, if you want to go with the terminology for that, as of June 23rd, you can see that we've spent $460,000, the majority of that on labor costs. Those labor costs were mainly, if you think about what's happened over the past 3 or 4 months, that's on custodians, food service workers, and the security. Those are the 3 largest areas where we've had labor costs due to the COVID-19 outbreak. The materials and supplies broken down, majority of those costs are for PPE, face masks, face shields, gloves. There's also some of thermometers that are in that, some smaller equipment, supply type items. And then another larger one that didn't jump right out at me, but I noticed in the report, is a lot of food service serving supplies. So pans, bags, things like that that were done as part of the food service performance over the last few months. The other costs are for Wi-Fi hotspots that we delivered to students to make sure that they have internet access. That's a small amount under other costs. The form of this report that we have is very prescriptive in nature by the federal government. And I just want to commend Alicia Pritchett for the work she's put in to get this completed. Just this one report, what you see here in one page is actually a 36-page document that is, to say it's cumbersome would be a nice gesture to the federal government.
Excuse me, would it be possible to post that on the website for us to look at?
I don't know. I think it would be, but I want to check with her first on the rules that FEMA has regarding that. I will tell you that at this point, this is simply a draft of what she's put together. She cranked some stuff out to get you numbers that I promised, and that's my fault for promising something that wasn't completely done at this point. So I'm sure once that's completed and she's ready to submit it, she will. We can possibly do that. This is just one portion of that grant. So the one portion is money we've already spent or encumbered. The other portion is a projection of what we intend to spend here in the next coming months as we reopen school for additional costs related to COVID.
I would also like to give a public shout out to Alicia Pritchett, because the person who's working with her said that there's only 2 schools in Indiana that have successfully completed the paperwork for even being able to apply for FEMA funds, and that our application was head and shoulders above anybody else's. So a big credit to her, because that's been entirely her project to do this. And if we're able to get some FEMA money back from this, that it really is a testament to her dedication to going through, as Mr. Reese indicated, a pretty cumbersome process to document and justify these expenses. Is that accurate, Matt?
Yes, please tell her thank you very much for me.
Very much so, Mr. Miller.
And we'll be happy to get the board the final report. It's just the report is not complete yet.
Thank you. We can't hear Trustee King.
Oh,
Um,
Trustee, go ahead. We can hear you now.
well, thank you. So these expenditures will not show up in our payables. This is separate. Is that what I understand?
No, these expenditures are showing up in our payables. Bills we've already paid.
So the material and supplies will, from different vendors, that's how we can identify it when we see vendors. Because I was going through our payables and it was quite difficult to determine what was what in terms of this. So $104,000 is part of our payable that came out for these supplies. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. It may not be on this board docket or claim docket. It may have been on board dockets a month ago. You're not going to see them just on this docket. We've been accumulating this information since the start of the pandemic.
Okay. Well, what was the total amount of the grant or the dollars that we have set aside for this?
It's not a grant, it's based on how much you actually spent.
Okay, so, and the money is coming out of what pot of money?
Out of our money or out of the FEMA money?
That's my,
So
Well,
right now, it's coming out of our money, out of our operation.
so it's coming out of our operations and we hope to be reimbursed. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, yes.
Correct.
Thank you. And one other thing, Mr. Reeves, I have requested a printout of our federal funds, the title dollars. When do we hope to get that? Because that budget is coming up soon to be voted on.
So I'll take that one, man. I did ask our new federal programs director, Ms. Danko, to work on this, but this actually time of year has had a lot of deadlines for her. The information system doesn't do it easily for us. When we tried that for an easy answer to that, and it was hundreds of pages long. So we looked at coming up with a system that would be like a more useful report for a trustee to be able to see the different categories of expense. And she just told me today she anticipates having it for the next board meeting.
And roughly, what is that budget, the dollar amount that we budget for that?
I'm sorry, for FEMA or for the title grants?
The title, we're talking about title.
I don't have the exact number for you of what we've been approved, but I can email that to you. That I can get you right away. That's not a problem.
Well, I'm sure to the whole board.
Of course, yeah. Does anybody else have anything for Mr. Reese?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Trustee Mamala. Or maybe this, Trustee Mamala, is she there?
Yes, trustee.
No, her sound is off.
Okay, she's on now.
Uh-oh.
You're on. We can hear you, Anna.
I had a question regarding our agenda.
Oh.
And perhaps Mr. Miller could answer it. We're under recognition and presentation, correct? And under new business item D, shouldn't that be under recognition and presentation? This is old, we've discussed this before, and it is a presentation.
It's never been up for a vote.
But it's still it's the second presentation. It's just a continuation.
It actually was not on the agenda last time. If you recall, I pulled it from the agenda. So this really is the first time it's on the new business agenda.
And it's not a presentation?
I'm going to discuss with the board, like I do each new business item, what the results are.
So it's a presentation.
Madam President, I think it's a actionable item. So I don't
Yes,
think it can't be under recognition and presentation because it's an actionable item. It has to be under new business, although the presentation can be part of it under new business. I think that might be the confusion.
I'm having some difficulty hearing. Everybody's cut out, cut in, cut out. What item are we discussing?
We are discussing, wait, I'm lost now. Item number D, I believe, under new business. Is that correct, Trustee King?
We can just move forward. I stand on what I'm saying, but because we just don't follow. any kind of protocol, but just move forward. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to go on to item B?
Item B.
Okay. Trustees, Mr. Jensen could not be with us tonight. He had to be on an airplane. We have had several conversations on next steps for giving the board information on the renaming of Morton. And I will say there's been an extra wrinkle into this. Once we approved our two athletic directors for the two new schools last board meeting, I did ask them to contact the IHSAA about making sure we filed the right paperwork to be eligible for the following school year. And essentially, we have until July 31st to provide them with the name and the basic areas of where kids are going to be going to that school. So my understanding of that would mean that if the board would be inclined to rename Morton, that it's going to be a decision we need to make before the end of July so we can get this paperwork filed with IHSAA. In my conversations with Mr. Jensen, these are some of the words that were coming out the most when we went back to the first survey and saw everything that people were putting out. Together, unified, community, hub, honor, pathway, pride. And my desire all along was to try to provide something for the kids. Not that we don't care for our alumni, but for the kids that would bring them together at both schools. And what I'd like to do is send out another survey that has some new suggestions for names that are centered around those themes of unified, community, being a hub, being together, and with some new suggestions for mascots as well, because again, 2 of the 3 top mascot choices are not available to us. I can include senators on there again, because that was the second highest vote getting item. But if you recall, the Morton survey yielded that Wolves was number 1 for them as well. So that is not an option anymore. And the third choice was Panthers, which is what Griffith is, which is directly south of Morton. So that is what I'd like to do to move forward, is to execute another survey on the names and the mascots, provide that information to the board, and then the board can decide if they want to proceed with the renaming of a new identity for Morton to coincide. It wouldn't be for this upcoming year, but it would be to coincide with the opening of Hammond Central in the fall of 21.
Madam President,
Trustee Miller.
President Mamala?
can I ask a quick question of Superintendent Miller?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I understand
Yes.
correctly, Superintendent Miller. So we would have to make a decision for the 2021 year by the end of this July?
That's the communication that we got back from the IHSAA, is that they need to be notified a year in advance to maintain eligibility of a change like this.
So it's this year.
We would need to make a decision by we wouldn't have to change the name. We would have to let them know what the intention is a year in advance.
Trustee Mamala.
Madam President?
Trustee Zulno.
Well, she can't hear me?
Superintendent Miller, will Mr. Jensen be at the next meeting?
He was certainly invited to this one. Yes, I can have him at the next meeting. I'll make sure that he can. Yes. Well, I shouldn't speak for his schedule. I will insist, though, that he be at the next meeting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Trustee Mamala.
Trustee King.
Thank you, Trustee Mamala. I would
Trustee
like,
King.
I can't understand why we're prolonging this any longer. We've been continually bombarded with emails from the Morton folks, and basically I haven't seen any emails from the Gavitt community one way or the other. And as I recall, Mr. Miller, the biggest issue is funding. We don't have the money to rebrand Morton High School at this time. And as you all have said, we would need another referendum to really bring Morton up to where it should be in comparison to the new high school. So I would surely recommend that we just move forward, take a vote, keep it Morton High School, because the longer we wait, the more aggravating the community will be. We're constantly talking about the community needs, but are we really? Is it a board thing? Is it a Mr. Miller thing? I think we have prolonged this whole issue long enough. We don't have the funding, and that's crystal clear. We're in a deficit. We've already indicated it's going to require another referendum to even design that new logo as got for the school. So I would make a motion that we name it Morton High School. We keep it Morton High School.
So President Mamala, I think she's made a motion and you need to, I don't know if you can hear us, but she made a motion. You need to ask for a second.
Trustee King has made a motion to continue the name of Morton High School as Morton High School. Is there a second?
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam President,
Trustee Miller?
I still feel the results of the previous survey were too close to make this decision. I personally feel that we need to resurvey the community, and if it comes back that the community is predominantly in favor of it remaining Morton High School, then I'm all for that. But I think the results were too close. And if you will remember, the survey indicated more people wanted to change the name than wanted to maintain the name. And so out of consideration for, I believe it was 52%, Mr. Miller?
Yeah, it was essentially
51%.
52 to 48 in favor of renaming.
Yes, so out of consideration for that 52%, I think we need to go back and resurvey the community. We need clear direction one way or the other. I personally don't care if it's Morton or if we change the name, but I feel that we have to go back to the community.
Trustee Mamala,
Trustee King?
thank you. It is my opinion that these surveys, they don't have a face to it. We keep saying we want to hear what the community says, and the survey doesn't do that. Our emails, to me, indicate more to what the community wants. Those surveys do not have a face on it. We really don't know who's participating in these surveys. It's just as simple as that. And we don't have the money. I mean, that's what's crystal clear. When the parent came before us and just before the pandemic, and brought it to our attention that Morton was on the list to be changed. This is one board member that never knew it was on the list to be changed. So we don't have the money. It's crystal clear. It should have never been on the list. And why we keep prolonging this is beyond me. Next week, some other agency is going to call us and say we have to meet a deadline because we haven't provided this or that. Let's just move forward on this, make a decision, voted up or voted down, and you keep saying the community. These surveys, we don't know where they're going. It has no face to them. But these emails do. And when people stop me on the street, that means more to me than a survey. Because I don't know who's participating in these surveys. We never put it in Parent Square. That was a big concern of a lot of the parents. If we had at least put it in Parent Square, that's for the whole thing with the name of the new high school as well. The community really, essence, had nothing to do with the naming of these schools. It was a survey with no face. It was skewed, flawed. Anytime a branding company going to use a free monthly survey to tabulate his findings, that doesn't give much credibility to a branding company. Let's move forward with this and vote up and down.
President Mamala,
Trustee Zulno.
my opinion is we spent a lot of time with Mr. Jensen working on this. I'd like to hear his final statements before we make that decision.
Trustee Mamala.
Trustee King.
Thank you. If I recall, Mr. Zuno, you made a motion to table it because you wanted to hear from the community. That was three school board meetings ago. And we still haven't heard from the community. The only way we're going to hear from the community is when we have a face-to-face board meeting with the public. Because this mechanism right here doesn't work for the public. They feel that they're not part of it, part of any decision-making process, and they're paying the bill. So we tabled it initially. So, because you wanted to hear from the public. We still haven't heard from the public other than these emails and when people confront us on the streets. So again, why are we prolonging this decision? We don't have the money.
President Mamala,
Trustee Zulno.
based upon what I have in front of me, which is our agenda, it specifically states here that John Jensen will present to us updates on the branding. That's what I'm working with. I don't have that, and I'm not going to vote until I have something like that.
Trustee Mamala,
Trustee King.
I appreciate that, Trustee Bruno. That makes a whole lot of sense. But it is irresponsible of Mr. Jensen not to be here. Professionalism is just not there when it comes to this branding company. He should have been here, or he could have at least sent the report. With all this technology, he couldn't have sent the report.
We do have a report for the colors and the logo selection for the new school that came from Mr. Jensen.
We're not talking about that, Mr. Miller.
I understand that, but I'm just saying when you're attacking his professionalism publicly, I'm going to at least speak up for someone who I think is a decent person.
I appreciate that, Mr. Miller. But if he sent you the report for the new school, why didn't he send the report for Morton? That's what's on the agenda as well.
Yeah.
He's dragging his feet.
I don't think he's dragging. I asked him to go back to the original survey, which had several thousand responses. You just wanted to invalidate those feedbacks as an invalid tool. I want to value that feedback as a tool. We're not going to convince each other otherwise. But I do think that my task to him was to go back and see what themes were common themes across the responses for the naming. And I would like to go back to the community with some common themes that would represent a school name that would show that we're coming together. Like that is where my heart is on this, is we have this opportunity with Hammond Central. We have an opportunity when we're putting the majority of Gavitt and Morton together that we can come together. And I think the name should reflect that in some instance. Like that, whatever comes out, I would like to see the names for both. I think Central is a name that reflects not just geography, but that it's central to the community. I'd love to have a name for Morton that would be similar. That would indicate that it's something about bringing people together.
Trustee Miller, Trustee Mamala. Well, Mr. Miller, why did you put it on the agenda? It should have never been on the agenda, period.
Madam President,
Trustee Miller.
we have a motion and we have a second. I'd like to
Yes.
call the question.
Yes. Yes.
I'd like to call the question, please.
Yes. Trustee Miller.
The question,
I'd like
There has
you
been
to,
a motion.
there has been a motion and a second.
Yes.
I'm calling for the vote, please.
And there has been discussion. Trustee Miller.
No.
Trustee Candelaria.
Yes.
Trustee Zulno.
No,
Trustee King.
yes,
And Trustee Mamala votes no.
All right.
The motion for the Morton High School branding update has not been passed. Am I correct on that? Because my volume is going off and on.
Trustee Mamala, the motion was to name the school as Morton. It wasn't necessarily on the branding. And I think that was the motion that was seconded and the call to the question, and what has been, that motion has failed.
All right.
trustee Mamala,
Trustee King.
I would just add one thing. When, in a situation like this, it should have never been on the agenda. And if any consultant does not have all the information, we shouldn't have to address it. It should have never been on the agenda, period. Mr. Miller, please be cognizant of that.
Do I have to disagree with you? I mean, the community has been involved, community has received the surveys, but what's down to it is certain people want certain things. And if it's not to their agenda, and if it's not to their liking, then they're gonna disagree with it. And that's the bottom line.
Trustee Mamala,
Trustee King.
you have a very negative way of coming up my comments. And that's not.
No, I don't. I'm
That is
entitled to my opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion as you're entitled to your opinion.
We are a board. We shouldn't.
I understand our board. I am entitled to my opinion as you're entitled to your opinion. And I will state my opinion.
Oh, Jesus help.
Item C, e-learning presentation.
Trustees, I would like to call Colette Whiteneck, who's volunteered to be our point person in gathering and putting together a presentation for the Board of Trustees on our e-learning program for this spring semester. I also have with her Barb Gustin to talk a little bit how that looked like.
Miller, members of the school board and community members. Tonight I am here with Gladys Olmstein to present the School City of Hammond e-learning report, June 2020. Are you able to see the screen?
We are.
Okay, so we'll get started then. On March 16th through May 29th were the dates of e-learning students from preschool through 12th grade. They were offered instruction through other means. During the 49 calendar school days, 33 days were e-learning days and 16 were waiver days. This report will look at the aspects of e-learning efforts of School City of Hammond, specifically number one, the delivery of instruction, the communication and learning that took place. Number two, the achievement of students and their attendance. And three, the professional learning opportunities given to the staff to better equip them for this unique time. So section one of our plan was delivery of learning. During this time, teachers used many online resources to provide learning opportunities for their students. These programs included Exact Path, Courseware, Gaphy, MobyMax, Plato, Sora, Pearson Math, Study Island, and Pearson Reading in our DLI classrooms at Irving. The school city of Hammond has been very vigilant about keeping all of its stakeholders up to date with the information and expectations. Multiple modes of communication were utilized to reach out to the school community. At the high school level, students were at one-to-one with Chromebooks prior to the continuous learning times. These were take-home devices. Students in grades K through 8 were given multiple opportunities to request and pick up devices via drop-off pickup. 2,500 additional devices were distributed during these distribution days, and 210 hotspots were distributed to high school students. Teachers and administrators actively contacted individual students and their parents if students had not logged in or submitted assignments. Teachers would post their assignments in a Google Classroom, and students would navigate to the various classrooms in which they were enrolled to get their assignments. For some students, all of their classes were located in just one Google Classroom. The teacher hosted office hours via WebEx and Google Meet each Wednesday to give students the opportunity to check in and connect. Reaching families when students are not physically in school was a challenge. We worked diligently to ensure we made those connections. The technology department has done an outstanding job of connecting families with Chromebooks. Most teachers use Google Meet to provide a virtual lesson through video conferencing. Some teachers use WebEx. Both of those programs were provided by the school city of Hammond. Teachers also use Google Voice or Jabber to contact parents and students via phone in order to provide instruction and answer questions. During the continuous learning time, the school city of Hammond held 436 virtual case conferences for families with students with IEPs. And if you look at the graph that's below, it illustrates the efforts used to regularly contact students and their families. And this was from 3/16 through May 29th. So the staff made over 15,600 contacts with students and their families. Through Parent Square, schools and classrooms could communicate with families through posts and direct messages. Posts were used to share information with the entire group and included students and teachers, and teacher and parent. Also, after June 9th or 10th, the previous data was somehow archived by the system, so we were not able to retrieve the data at the time of completing this report. When we can get this data, we will update the report and send it on to Superintendent Miller. The second graph is the number of Parent Square posts by school. So the staff created over 300 posts on Parent Square, and the following chart is the number of direct messages by schools. Now, one thing we want to note is only 1,502 parents have installed the Parent Square app onto their phone. That is only 11% of the 13,663 students listed in Parent Square. So the staff and families use direct messaging through Parent Square over 120,000 times.
Colette, if I could jump in real quick.
Yes.
Just to add some context to that, if they don't have the app, it means they get a text message. So it doesn't mean they didn't receive a message from us. It just means it comes in as a traditional text message instead of coming in through the application.
Correct. Section 2 is achievement and attendance. Teachers assigned work on Mondays with it being due each Friday. Grades were assigned, however, if an assignment received a grade lower than 69%, and let me preface, this is high school, students were given a week to resubmit the assignment for credit. Students in grading period 3 and grading period 4 made up the second semester grades. Students were assigned the credits based on semester grades in courses. Exception was the class of 2020. Those students received credit based on enrollment as of March 19th of 2020. Students had additional opportunities to earn credits this summer via online instruction. So this next graph is the attendance for all students in grades kindergarten through 12th grade, and it's at 94.3%. Across the district, the attendance rates ranges from 84.9 to 99.6%. So student participation, it was calculated in two different ways. In the elementary school, students who turned in assignments were considered to be engaged. Secondary schools, the grades from grading period 4 were used to determine participation. If the student received a pass or pass plus, then he or she was counted as participating. So for the participation rate for all students in grades kindergarten through 12th was at 84%. Across the district, the participation rate was 64.3 to 96%. The average rate for elementary was 91.2, and the average rate for secondary was 74.3. And then the next graph shows participation rate by school, again from March 16th through May 29th. So teachers did not teach new content with the exception to the AP, the CTE, and the dual credit courses. They provided a review of skills and standards that were already taught so that students could reach mastery and provide a strong base for moving forward next year. Instructional stipends have been built into every school's Title I budget using our carryover money. Funding has been set aside by Title I to offer some extra instructional programming in schools again and invite our students who need it to come to each school for extra instructional programs. The money will continue to serve students throughout next year as funds allow to continue to meet their needs. Students in special ed had additional access to academic supports. They had reading aids, literacy program, pre-K through 6, my virtual reading coach, which is MindPlay, Ascend Math, and 1XL Math. So as we know, School City of Hammond has offered virtual summer school. The technology department distributed another 160 additional devices to schools to give to participants of VSS. In the elementary grades, we currently have 50 teachers instructing new content of the current grade level and 908 students enrolled. At the middle school, there are 415 students participating, and in elementary and middle, teachers are creating live video mini lessons, introducing new content through Google Meets. At the high school level, the data is not complete at this time due to the fact that many administrators are taking vacation. We do know, though, that students are receiving instruction in new content, Indiana Online Academy, as well as remediation, which is provided by a Hammond teacher, according to the students' academic needs. The final attendance and participation numbers will be available after July 2nd when virtual summer school ends. And the last section is staff development. So during April, May, and June, 180 professional development sessions occurred for the elementary teachers, and 100% of those teachers participated in the opportunities, which I think is amazing. The top 2 topics addressed were social emotional learning and using technology. And if you look at the next chart, it's the number of PDs offered by school. The average number of sessions per building was 14. And the number of PDs offered per building ranged from 10 to 19. And the attendance rate for the elementary PD sessions averaged 99.14%. So secondary professional development, 98% of the secondary teachers participated in professional development opportunities. And that is what the graph is showing, or the chart is showing you. And again, at the high school level or secondary level, the top 2 topics addressed were social emotional learning and using technology. And you could see the bar graph that's showing the attendance rate for weekly PD for secondary schools from April through May. So the average attendance rate at the secondary level was 88%, and the range was 77% to 93%. And in addition to weekly PDs, the school city of Hammond hosted a 3-day conference for the secondary teachers. The school city virtual PD conference was held May 19th through May 21st. There were 2 sessions each day, and sessions were presented by school city instructional coaches, other school city personnel, and outside vendors. A total of 20 different topics were offered through the conference, and each were offered twice for a total of 40 sessions. And the next bar graph, again, it's showing the virtual PD conferences and the attendance by school. So the average attendance rate was 90%, and the range was 82 to 96%. So we did offer some recommendations. We felt that a consistent way to document our efforts needed to be in place for attendance, for participation, for contacting parents. Parent contact should be documented as a log entry in PowerSchool. And there needs to be a consistent use of ParentSquare tools in order to contact or notify parents. PowerSchool and ParentSquare should be the 2 tools used throughout the district, and parents should be encouraged to have both apps on their devices. And we do recognize that ParentSquare was new to us this year, and we didn't have a lot of time to get enough training in to be more proficient with it, but we know it's going to get better. And professional development with the following online resources for the elementary teachers is Benchmark Universe and Pearson Envision Math. So they need some support with those online resources. And we do need more hotspots, especially for the elementary and middle school students. And then on one final note, this is a living document, so more data and recommendations will be added as it becomes available. Thank you.
Colette, is Barb here to discuss the preschool?
She should be. I'm here.
Or Barb, you want to talk about the Head Start in half?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, give me just a second here. I'm trying to, is there something up there?
It says it's starting to share. It's starting to share.
Okay, let me get that.
Sure.
I did not have nice, okay, let me move. this. There we go. I did not have bar graphs and things in my Google Docs presentation, so I pulled it together this way. If you think back a few years ago, there was a television show as well as some movie series, Mission Impossible. And there was a common theme in there. The character, whether it was Jim or Ethan, he received his mission. And at the end of the mission, which was audio taped, he would hear, "Your mission if you choose to accept it. Should you choose to accept it?" And then the message would self-destruct. The problem with pandemics is they don't share their mission with you in advance. You just have to react. So when we think about the mission, this wasn't impossible, it was possible. So if someone had come to us and said, your mission is to do this, or your mission is for this, the items that follow, we would be able to say mission accepted and mission accomplished. So if the mission was for us to provide teaching and learning opportunities for Head Start students, we accepted that mission, we did it. Someone early on said it was like building the plane while you're flying it, and that was definitely what it felt like sometimes. You're doing it, and you're just thinking about it as you go along. And so we started doing a combination of virtual live small groups, activities that we sent home, and videotape story reading. And one of the things we learned is the videotape story reading was one of the parents' favorite things. Any of you that have had preschoolers or have them now know how often children like to have the same story read over and over and over and over and over again. And because the teachers and the teachers' assistants and the classroom aides had read those stories and posted them, the parents could play them at any time for the students. It served two purposes. They got to read the story, but they also got to see their teacher and their teacher assistant and their classroom aide, people that they were close to. As with the district, if students participated in the activity as reported, they were counted as present, so we had an attendance of 96%. And if the mission was to use technology as a tool to support teaching, learning, and communication, definitely did that. A special thanks goes out to Mr. Benich and the technology department for all of their support, because we went into some areas we had never been before as far as technology is concerned, and they were a great help. As I mentioned, staff was doing videotaping, they were posting stories, they were scheduling Google Meets with parents, they were using apps to communicate with parents. Our staff collaborations, professional development, and meetings were all conducted virtually. And Google Forms became our go-to tool for all kinds of things. We tracked daily activities for staff. We sent out surveys. We used it as a recruitment tool for the fall, sending out a link so people could complete those pre-application sorts of things. Chromebooks were provided for our students. And one of the Google Forms that we used was a parent survey. And what we found out from that was a definite need for devices. Almost 19% of the families that responded said that a cell phone was their only device for e-learning or virtual learning. And over 16% stated that 3 or more people in their household was sharing one device. We actually had some families that said 5 people were sharing a device. And think about if a family's only device for virtual learning is a cell phone and that parent goes to work, the students only have that phone available when their parents are available. So the need for the Chromebooks was something that was proven through the reports of the parents. If the mission was for parents to play a meaningful role in supporting other parents, absolutely happened. I cannot say enough about our policy committee. The school board members have met them through that dinner, which seems we had so long ago in February, but they were up to the task. They met virtually with us, and the PC consists of parents and a community representative, and they determined at the beginning of April that they wanted to meet twice a month because they really wanted to be able to keep tabs on what was happening with families during the pandemic. So it was their idea for us to change our annual survey that would ask, parents about their satisfaction about Head Start. And there was a question about that, but they really wanted to get an idea of how parents were doing through the pandemic. And the results from that survey provided all kinds of information that we're using now and will be continuing to use. And for example, the survey asked what parents were finding as their greatest need during the pandemic. It also asked them what they had had the most access to. And the thing that they had the greatest need for was food, and the thing they had most access was food. And it just so happens that our community representative works for Northwest Indiana Community Action. She wanted to make sure our family support specialists had all the information they needed to share with families about available resources. So she scheduled a meeting time to meet with them and make sure all the bases were covered. Our family support specialists, which are like a social work role, provided resource information to parents on an at least a weekly basis. 80% of the families in the survey acknowledged receiving information at least weekly, if not more. And they contacted their parents weekly to stay connected with them, to provide support as they needed. It was a stressful time for parents, and some of the things that were reported on the survey were about some of the stress that parents were feeling. And 96.3% of our families were contacted during the pandemic time. The other mission for staff to engage in meaningful and professional development collaboration. I just saw on the report that Colette was giving that Head Start had the most opportunities for professional development, and that's because of these things I'm going to talk about now. We had a 6-week study of the conscious discipline book, Managing Emotional Mayhem. Each week, the staff met in small groups of 7 to 8 people and discussed a series of questions that were provided. After that, they actually pulled together and helped us develop our conscious discipline plan for the fall. We have a conscious discipline plan for in-class. We have a conscious discipline plan for virtual learning as well. So we want to make sure those two pieces mirrored one another, and it stemmed from their involvement in the book study. They also participated in a 10-session conscious discipline webinar series. Thankfully, we had that facilitated by someone from Conscious Discipline. So each day in the first week of June, they met and talked about the video assignment from the day before. They also completed a variety of other webinars, and they worked collaboratively to plan activities, their small groups lessons. Head Start administrators met with them in different groups all together. And I have to say, we probably met more this way collaboratively than we would during the regular school year. We have students 7 hours a day, and so it's very difficult for us to do that in the course of the day. So being able to do that through this time has been really helpful, and staff have learned a lot from one another and have been really able to play an active role in doing the planning. And if the mission was for us to take lessons that we've learned and to help us do what we do better, absolutely have been doing that. Necessity has been the mother of invention. Something's popped up, we've had to take care of it. And I know there were times that staff were fearful. They didn't say it, but I knew that they were, because it was new technology. And they were having to, be on camera live, which can be a little bit intimidating. So what we found out was their relationships and their connections with their students and their families were stronger than the fear that they had. They did what they did because they cared for their kids and their families. There's no other explanation for that. They worked so hard to do what they've done. And in addition to that, they're still reading stories for their kids. Yes, we have virtual summer school and they're posting for that, but we have teachers that are not just posting it to the summer school kids, they're posting it to the other children as well. One of the things that we'll be doing is using Google Classroom as our learning platform in the fall. We actually have training next week for that to happen, so we're ready to go right from the very beginning. That way parents have a seamless service delivery. They'll start with preschool with us, all the way through 12th grade, they'll have the same learning platform. And technology is working with us as far as Parent Square. We're in 8 different buildings in the fall in the district, so it's a little bit more challenging for us to get into one group. But they are doing some work with us to get that to happen, so that will be our main communication tool. And we've actually used the information from the parent survey. Parents listed questions that they had for kindergarten teachers. We sent that out in a Google form, of course, to the kindergarten teachers, and they responded. And so parents who are going to Harding have a response from Harding teachers. Kids who are going to Irving have a response from Irving teachers. So our parents will have customized responses to their questions, not just one big global kindergarten response. So I would not like to repeat a pandemic, but I have to say that some of the lessons that we've learned, we wouldn't have learned any other way. So we really want to take advantage of what has happened. And we like to say mission accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb and Colette. Any questions from the trustees for either how it went with Head Start or in our buildings?
Madam President? You're on mute, Anna.
Oh.
Anna, you're on mute.
You're on, you should be good to go, Anna.
Am I good now?
Yep.
You're good now.
It keeps on going on and on. I'm not touching anything here, trust me.
Okay, Madam President,
Trustee Zulno.
I'd like to thank the two young ladies for two outstanding reports. I want to thank the students and the teaching staff. The attendance looked incredible, and the PD that you did was beyond reproach, it looks like. So it appeared you attacked your missions in one. So very, very great report. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, I have to agree with you, Trustee Zulno. Both reports have been very, very thorough. And I want to thank Ms. Whiteneck and Ms. Barb. I know that this has been a very, very challenging time, but you all have done an exceptional job. And I want to thank our parents and our teachers for all the hard work that they have done. I just have one question, please. In the report, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, in the report, and my computer, it has been going off and on, and it could have been spoken upon, and I may have not heard it. But has there anything been said about the APP, the alternative program, and the report program for special ed?
We
That could
did
be
talk
done
about
virtually?
special
Pardon?
ed is doing virtual learning,
Okay,
and they also had special resources, reading aids, mind play. Trying to think the other ones that were listed. I'll go back to the report, but they did have additional resources, so they were online as well, but they were included in the total population of participating. Even the CBE classrooms were doing e-learning.
all right, and what about the our alternative program, the APP?
Miss Jankosik did continue to work with students during that time. I'm not sure
Okay.
I saw a specific report from her, but I know she continued to work with her students remotely during that time.
Okay. Okay. Again, excellent report. Ms. Whiteneck, I'm just going to say to you, number one, you've been in the district for a very long time, and all the work that you have done has been absolutely exemplary.
Thank you, Ms. Mamala.
You have done such a great job. You are so thorough and so on task and the whole 9 yards. And I've known you for a long time, and I appreciate you. And Miss Barb from Head Start, I appreciate everything that you do. You run a very exemplary program with your staff and everything. And to both of you, you need to be very, very congratulated.
Madam
Thank you.
Madam President?
Thank you.
Yes, Trustee Miller.
I'd also like to add, I love the way you said that this was a living document, you know, that we're still learning and we're still gathering data. This isn't kind of a one and done and we put it on the shelf, you know, but that we're learning from this experience. And I think it was you, Miss Barb, who mentioned that you just continue to go back, right, and continue to refine the process. And I appreciate you both so very much. And as Anna had mentioned, our students and our parents and everybody just jumping in and finding a way to make this happen. But thank you so much for making it a living document and continuing to gather data and for continuing to learn from this experience. Because unfortunately, I think what we learned here today will forever change the way that we do education. You know, I think the way that we provide instruction will forever be impacted by this experience that we've had with COVID-19. So again, I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and another thing too, HAPA. I know that they were involved in a lot of the e-learning also. Am I correct?
Right, and they're included with Morton High School's counts, student
Okay.
counts. Yeah,
Okay. Because I know they worked very, very hard with what they were doing over there with the arts. And it's hard with the arts, especially in e-learning. You know, if you dance, you have to show yourself and how you can perform. If you play an instrument, you have to show how you can play that instrument. If you sing, you have to show yourself vocally. And they just did a tremendous job, and I want to thank them. I want to thank HAPA for all the work that they've done also.
If
Trustee
there's
King,
no-
I think Trustee King is muted. I think she's trying to say something.
Hello?
We can hear
Yes,
you.
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Thank you. Trustee Mamala?
Yes, Trustee King.
Thank you. I too want to commend Mrs. Colette. She knows how I feel about her over the years. She has been a trooper when it comes to education. I have a few questions on your report. You indicated that through the virtual summer school, we have 908 students participating. Is that what I heard?
yes.
And of the 908 students, what schools or what grade levels?
It's all the elementary and the middle schools are participating, but that was elementary numbers.
Oh, that was elementary, the 908 students. It's from all schools?
Yes,
908, I'll clarify, 908 is just the elementary school.
But every elementary school is represented in this 908.
yes.
Okay, fine. And what happens to the letter grade? Were letter grades assigned or with this e-learning experience? And how is that going to affect our rating moving forward in the next school year?
Trustee King, are you asking were individual letter grades assigned to kids, or are you asking about the school letter grade?
Well, a letter grades assigned to the schools that eventually makes up the district grade, correct?
Well, this year already, even before COVID, because of the new test, it was already a year where we were not going to have a grade. So there's no impact on the school letter grade from this past year because of the new test.
Well, in terms of individual grades, how are we showing performance? How are we showing any growth with this e-learning process? I mean, how do we know the children have actually achieved something in this process? It's moved from a B to a C or vice versa. How do we know that?
So Colette, if you don't mind answering for elementary, I'll answer for secondary.
Okay, so for elementary, this is with giving a student a letter grade.
How did we assess their learning in elementary? Whether it was a letter grade or some other way?
Well, by participation, we looked at their third quarter grade, and they could not receive lower than that third quarter grade, but they could go up, so they wouldn't be penalized. So if they had good participation rate, they did their work, they were able to raise their grades. Say they had a C, they were able to raise it to a B. But if they had low participation and say they had a C in the third grading period, they still received a C. It would not be lower.
Okay, so we can, you can put that on a sheet, a data sheet, so we can see the progression of our students. And one other question, I mean, is that possible?
You mean like you want to see how many students, like maybe like an aggregate sheet that would indicate how their grades went, whether they went up or down or stayed the same? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, that's what, because don't we need that as we move forward in terms of, with the student's GPA eventually? It has to be established. And
Second, let me speak to that, Trustee King, on secondary. Miss Collette was just talking about elementary, and elementary doesn't have a GPA, but when you get to secondary, the guidance from IDOE was not to punish kids if they were not participating. So Miss Goods and her team developed a system where there was 3 possible outcomes for GP4, grading period 4. It was either a pass, fail, or a pass plus. So students could have the option, if the teacher felt that they did significant growth, they could get a pass plus. And then we recommended a formula for teachers to calculate out the third period grade along with the fourth period grade to come up to a semester grade. So even though GP4, the report card would have a P plus, or an F on it, or the actual grade that goes on the transcript is the semester grade. So there were grades assigned at secondary.
secondary, okay.
Yeah, that were an actual grade for the semester, and that's what went on kids' transcripts. And that was guidance from IDOE that for the semester, you should not do pass or fail. For the semester, you needed to issue a grade, and we did do that.
Okay, and Mr. Miller, I have some other questions, but I can hold them, but may I call Mrs. Collette to go over some of the questions I have regarding this report?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so I won't prolong the meeting. Thank you.
Anybody have anything else for Ms. Collette or Ms. Barb?
I have nothing.
I would just like to say the one area I'm just so proud of our school district for is the commitment to professional development. You know, I meet routinely with the other superintendents across the area, and I really feel that the volume and quality of professional development that we offered was untouched. And to see the participation rates, and shout out to all our coaches and to Gladys and Elisa for leading some of those efforts to make sure we had timely and quality PD every single week for our staff. And at the elementary levels, the principals led a lot of those initiatives. So thank you to all of you. Definitely not easy, but I do feel that our teachers have already received a lot of professional development on best practice for e-learning and how to approach this, because I agree with Barb that in some form or fashion, we're not going to forget these lessons. It's never going to go back to the way it was before. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Barb and Colette.
Trustee Mamala, I might add, it seems like even in the reporting, we still need to engage parents more, because that's the key. We have to engage parents. in order for our children to, bridge this gap that we're trying to, get the bar higher when it comes to academics. And the report indicates that we need room of improvement for engagement.
But we did make over 15,000 parent contacts, so that's more than one per student on an average. So that process, we had a lot of conversations about. We started trying to reach out to families where kids were not participating, but the goal was to actually make contact with every single family in School City of Hammond. And with 15,000 verified contacts, those are ones where we're successful. We're not talking about ones where someone didn't pick up the phone. 15,000 verified contacts. It's not perfect, but it definitely was a very strong effort on behalf of our staff.
Thank you for sharing that, Superintendent Miller. All right. Item D, human resource presentation.
Trustees, I'd like to bring up Dr. Green, our Assistant Superintendent of Operations, for a report on HR that has been requested from some of the trustees.
Okay, I would just like to preface this report by saying that the goal of human resources is always to attract the proper person for the proper position. We want to attract, train, retain certificated teachers who are well-versed in creative and collaborative practices, pre-K through post-secondary practices in urban education. And if I could ask Superintendent Miller to share.
We'll doing it right now.
Thank you. We're cognizant of the fact that it's difficult to attract the person that we want sometimes. And we're also very much aware of the fact that our students need to see role models and educators that either look like them or understand what they go through on a daily basis at home and in their personal lives. So if you'll flip to number 2, or screen 2. Thank you. Trend data. Basically, we looked over 3-year spread and we realized that we have been relatively consistent, but that has a caveat. And when I say consistent, the question was about resignations. When I say we've been consistent, we have stayed within 10 points or 10 resignations over a 3-year period. We have to listen to the fact that we had a rift at the beginning of this school year. Now, I can't take responsibility for data past or beyond this school year because basically I've been here exactly 1 year, and Superintendent Miller as well. However, for the previous years, I've noticed that we have some pretty consistent trends. And even though we had that riff in there, we still stayed relatively consistent with a slight uptick, which I'll be showing you on a graph. We have those challenges that everyone else has. As I spoke about in the retreat, we have a hard time finding our minority candidates, those candidates from underrepresented groups. And we're looking at picking them straight from their programs that they're being prepared in. However, just like everyone else, we're in kind of like a battle to see if we can attract those teachers. And so one of the processes that we did this year was to get out there a little bit earlier than everybody else. And even though that is a good strategy to have, unfortunately, people, once they sign on to come to you, it doesn't mean they're actually going to be with you when the school year starts. But it's a good start to actually be out there and looking early in the process. The other thing, that diversity effect that we are seeing is that sometimes we don't attract the teacher that we want because it is a challenge to work in our schools. We have some performance issues that we are working on. And unless you're really looking for that challenge, you might find it difficult to come in and want to actually do the work that it takes to turn a district around. So knowing that those are all problems, that doesn't make some people shy away, and those are the people that we're getting out there looking for. So yes, we're talking about resignations, but I think recruitment has a piece to do with that. So what are we looking at? We're looking at Hispanic serving institutions. historically Black colleges and universities. But grow your own initiatives have become very popular with a lot of districts. I heard a statistic a little earlier on where someone mentioned that we have at Eggers, we only have 3 certified teachers. That is not true. We basically, in all of our schools, we look for the certificated teacher first. However, if we cannot find a certificated teacher, we go with someone with a bachelor's degree that we can certify either through preparation or through the Department of Education doing an emergency permit. But the point is, we always look for that person that has some type of education that is going to go toward what it is they're teaching. And obviously, there's an abundance of elementary teachers, but unfortunately, not many secondary. So if someone has a business degree, then they can always come to us with that business degree and teach a business class. Sometimes they're also pretty good at teaching math classes. And so what we do is work with the Department of Education for an emergency permit and then try to get them interested in going to a certification program, which would be something like transition to teaching. All of those programs allow a person to become licensed while they're learning their pedagogy or they're teaching classes. So they know the content. It's just supporting them and getting them through the process of becoming certificated. Some of you might have seen the fellowship program that we put out there for all of our teachers and aides or staff members who might want to become a teacher in an underserved area like math or language arts or science or any of the STEM classes. We put that information out there because there's money out there to be had. I've had several people contact about that. We tell them about the incentives in housing that are available through Hammond. And we also tell them about any program where they might be able to work, also get paid, and get help with their expenses. So we're doing a lot of things to try and attract those teachers. Next slide. If you look at, this is basically our trend. 2019, you see that slight uptick. Basically, we had 148 resignations 3 years ago. The year after that, we had 153. And this year, we had 158. The interesting thing about that is we did have that rift that we talked about earlier, and that was very frightening for some of our teachers. And we understand that. We never want to do that again. But unfortunately, sometimes finance does dictate that. But understand that all of those teachers were called back, every single one of them. Did they all come back? No. But all of the teachers were called back as openings occurred. Next slide, please. So if you really want to know what our resignations look like and where, you can look and see that we had several resignations, and the majority of those resignations occur at the secondary level. Generally, most secondary schools had 10 or more resignations. Now, all those resignations may have or may not have been filled by a certificated person, but the point is that at 158 resignations, when you have over 800 teachers, it's not unheard of. And those resignations weren't only teachers, we're talking about staff as well. That does not, however, include our retirements. They are not included in there. We did break it down by all of the schools that had resignations. Our lowest schools are Columbia, of course, and Miller, because those 2 schools were closed. Our highest schools always being our secondary schools. Little rougher to work in a secondary school, and some people just aren't prepared for what they face. And then if you'll notice in department-wise, we put transportation because transportation is one that we do generally track to see how many resignations they're having, how many hires they have, because we want to make sure we keep qualified drivers. And we do put quite an investment into a driver as well as mechanics and things like that. And so we do track how many people are in and out of that particular position. And also, you'll notice that the administrative center is also listed, and there was question about how many resignations we've actually had at the administrative center. There's only been 3. So essentially, this is not to belittle the fact we wish that everybody was with us always. When we hire a person, we put a lot of commitment into them. That's training, making sure social emotional learning or their social emotional state is taken care of as much as we can. But the point is that we want to keep our folks, but they're not leaving in record numbers. And when I compare this to some of our other districts that are around us, we're quite comparable to them as well. I took this a step further and I went on to hiring and promotion. You can actually click through 2 slides there.
Just real quick, Dr. Green, to clarify, these numbers on this bar graph do reflect staff that was RIFed, correct?
They do.
So that doesn't necessarily mean like because Gavitt's the highest, it could just mean that because of where the RIFs fell, that the majority of people were RIFed from that. Is that correct?
Most certainly. And the other thing is it also doesn't reflect the fact that some of those people have come back, and we'll talk about that as well.
Okay.
Okay. So you can just go past that one. Thank you. Okay, so our process of hiring is something that I think a lot of people have had a lot of questions about. Do we have a posting process? Yes, we do. We can post the job internally. A lot of times, if we know there's going to be a high demand internally, we post it internally first, and then we'll post externally. It's possible that we can post internally and not find the right candidate for the job. It could be from qualifications or anything else. But the point being that sometimes we have to go ahead and post that job externally. For a job like the assistant superintendent of academics or something like that, we post it both places. And we sometimes have to post more than once. There is a selection panel that is usually put to every interview, and that could be basically people who have expertise in the area. It may also be someone who has a vested interest in working with that position, but the whole point is we try and have a panel of interviewees so no one person is tasked with choosing for an individual position. The question came up, why isn't a person interviewed every single time they post for a job? And the answer for that is if you've been interviewed multiple times by multiple panelists, sometimes it's already known that that's not going to be a job that you're going to be a good fit for. And so we do have communication with that candidate, but we may not necessarily have another interview with that candidate. Interview panels, the questions are made up because they're based on the job that the person is interviewing for. And so you will have a series of questions, anywhere from 14 questions to 20 sometimes. We do ask every candidate the same questions and we try and keep it consistent, but we try and make sure that all questions are pertinent to the job and no caveats, I remember you used to work for this department. We don't do things like that. We basically ask them the questions and we let them expound. Another thing that we do is we also have them sometimes make up a plan for the position that they're going into. What's your first 60 days going to look like? What are you going to do first? How are you going to prioritize transition or some of the things that are important right now in the district? So we have them do those types of things too, and then the panel will review their plan as well as their interview questions. Then the candidates or the candidate or interview panel will meet, and we will sit down and we'll actually rank the candidates based on their response to questions as well as their plans or whatever else they've submitted. The final round of interviews is where it takes a different turn. If it's a district position, the district positions will go to the superintendent. The panel will send 2 to 3 candidates to the superintendent for review, and that is only for district positions. For building level positions, the principal has the opportunity to also interview that person or for whatever position it is, and they will take 2 to 3 candidates, or if there's only a few candidates for the position, maybe they'll go ahead and select at that point. Then we notify all of our candidates, and we are appreciative of the fact that so many of them come with a high amount of talent. But the whole point is that there's only one position, and sometimes we have to make a difficult choice. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, you're going to see basically these are our hires that we have made in School City of Hammond since the year that I've been here, as well as Superintendent Miller. The question was, are we hiring people of color? Are we hiring in all areas people of color? And it's difficult to see, but what you're going to see is that basically in administration, and this is not only hires, but also promotions. In administration, you're going to see that people of color were promoted or hired at approximately 49%. And that is over and above what we have done in the past. I looked at the past because I wanted to know. I mean, the question bothers me when I am asked, are we ignoring our people of color? Are we not hiring based on the needs of our district? The truth of the matter is, when I go into an interview session and when I go into interviewing or looking over candidate applications, I look not at what color somebody is, but I look at what their credentials are. Understanding, of course, that I have to represent our district as well. But the point is that I want to look at their credentials and I want to know that they're actually going to be able to do the job. And if you look at what we have done since we have been in the district, there are, it's clear that we have, like I said, several candidates of color who have been selected across the board in all of our position categories: administration, teachers, clerical, transportation, cafe, support staff, and others, all other positions. So I'm not sure if I can answer more questions about that, I will. I don't like singling out individual positions, but I would be more than happy to go over this information with anybody who wants to have it, as well as to go through our processes of hiring. I am a person of color. I have children of color. And so basically, when I look at credentials, I am not just looking at color, I'm looking at credentials. And I'm looking at the position and the work that needs to be done in this district. And there's a lot of it. And so I want to make sure that we don't have any false starts. And so essentially, I'm going to choose the best candidates to pursue for the district and for filling the positions that we have. Can we go to that next slide, please? We can do a final. So if you look at IDOE InView, which is our new way of looking up information, you'll see that for the year prior to coming here, essentially there were 12.9 African American, that's a percentage, 12.9% African American, 13.4% Hispanic, 1.6% multiracial, and 1.2% Asian. So basically 29% people of color who were working in Hammond School District. We are on track to basically go beyond that in this 1 year. And so my point to showing you this is that we do have those recruitment efforts out there. We are not ignoring the voice of the public or of some of our board members who are asking us these questions. But this is not a easy ship to turn. There's so many things that we are looking at and so many difficulties that we face when we're trying to recruit for our district. And one of them is the fact that we may not be the first choice for some of these candidates. We understand that. We're trying to make it so that we're their first choice, but we do understand the fact that we may not be their first choice, but that does not stop us from pursuing them. And we've been pursuing them early this year. I think we have a really great start to our school year for next year. A lot of our principals have been working very hard, and they have been able to recruit people from even other districts. But the point being that they have been able to recruit, they've been able to put training plans together so that we can support and retain those teachers. Can we get our last slide, please?
Ryan?
I think you missed the slide.
Oh, this is the last slide. Okay.
Let's go back. There we go. That's the one I want to talk about. And the other thing that we were saying is that there were some dissatisfaction, and we had people that were leaving our district. It was asked, do we have an exit interview? Yes, we do. Do they always fill it out? No, they don't. But in most cases where we were able to get information, as you can see by the legend, undisclosed is going to be your biggest instance, because when people are ready to go, they just leave a lot of times. But when we can get down to the real nuts and bolts of why they're leaving, 31 did leave for another job. As I said before, we had 159 people that left our district. Some of them left because of education. When I say education, they started the process with us, and then they decided that they wanted to go and pursue their education fully and have full-time in education. Job satisfaction, there were 9 that left because they were not satisfied with working with School City of Hammond. And I'm hoping I'm reading that right. 13 were elevated to new positions. And then if you notice, licensing is another issue. If you are not properly licensed, but you just want to teach math, then unfortunately, and you're licensed in English, unfortunately, you can't continue to teach math, because math is a vital subject and we need to make sure we get the most qualified person in there. And then we had 17 people that did leave us due to performance. And that should tell you something, because what's really happening is that means that principals are monitoring that performance and making sure that it's up to the level that it should be in our district.
Repeat
An
your,
interesting thing is that many who left us returned, and they tried to return before the end of the school year. We had 43% of the teachers who left us attempt to return to the district. That position may not have been open, and some people didn't get the position that they wanted, but the point was that 43% did try to return to Hammond. So I don't know what else to say about this, except I know the numbers, some of them are daunting. They're not where we want them to be. But the truth of the matter is that it is something that is on the radar. It is something we are working with and will continue to work with. We are not, we're not blind to the fact that this is something that we're going to have to keep moving on. And I guess, as Barb said, and as so many people say before us, basically, these things are things that are constantly in motion. These numbers don't define us, and these numbers won't be who we are next year, maybe not even next week. We're going to continue the process of improvement. Questions?
Trustee Mamala. Trustee Mamala. Oh, well, that's the end of that.
Go ahead with your question, Trustee King.
Excuse me?
I said, why don't you go ahead with your question, please?
Okay, at one point I can't find the screen. You had indicated that the building principal.
Hello?
The building.
Yes, I'm still here. I can hear you.
Oh,
Trustee King, I can hear you.
okay, thank you. That district versus building,
Yes.
I guess that's the building principal has a say-so and who comes into his or her building.
Absolutely.
How much weight is given on that?
It starts with a panel. And essentially, that's why you have a panel, because one person, I mean, it would be hard for a person not to stack a building full of only the people they want and friends and things like that. And so basically, the panel will actually rank the candidates based on their interview. And so the principal has the right to look that over and to review that information and to ask some questions of their own with the finalists for the position.
Well, that's sort of scary to me, especially in considering our new high school, because currently, based on the concerns of the two communities, if we're talking about bridging two communities together, from my understanding, what we see is the majority or the lion's share of the jobs, the top positions in the new school is coming from the Clark High School staff. And the fear is, and let me be clear, the fear is with the clerical, the janitorial, their fear is that they will be totally wiped out of that building and replaced with the Clark staff. And
May I answer that?
may I finish?
I'm sorry, I thought you were.
Thank you. And moving forward, again, if we're trying to bridge two communities together, when we talk about the decisions in our decision-making process, we could have had two co-principals as opposed to one. Because you have one principal that, according to one community, feels that there's going to be a preference and that there's no one there to cover them. And we could have easily decided to do co-principals, and that's been done before at Hammond High School. So again, with all of your processes of hiring people, and the fact that many feel there are qualified and effective minorities within the district that have not been moved up the ladder, and many of them leave for that very reason. And that's, I'm just stating a matter of fact. And with our hiring process moving forward, if we're really trying to bring communities together, because at this point, communities feel that they are being information and procedures if just being stuffed down their throat. Take it or leave it. That's the attitude. So those are my comments regarding this report. I do have some other questions. Again, Mr. Miller, I would like to be able to call Dr. Green to have her to go over some of these other graphs with me, if that's okay.
It is. I do want to mention one thing that you said about clerical and perhaps teachers and custodial. All of those are in bargaining groups. And so there will be a agreed upon plan for the selection of whom goes into what. And depending on the group, it will be based on things like, well, mostly experience, like years in the district. For teachers, there's a process in that as well that is state defined in the statute. But we've said all along that for the teacher part of it, it's going to be agreed upon process with Mr. Geekus that all the secondary teachers will basically be put into a pool. We'll look at their license, we'll look at their evaluation scores, and they will have some say in which building they want to go to. It won't be the principal selecting the teachers, it will be the teachers selecting which building based upon that criteria we negotiate with the teachers union. But administrative positions are not part of a union, and so they're not subject to the same type of rules like that. But for all these other positions, it's going to be a negotiated process. It won't be left up to the principal.
Well, with that being, I appreciate you saying that, but the information that's been brought to me, even that process is being distorted. It keeps changing, but again, that's the union. You know, 1 minute is seniority, then it's tenure, no, it's something else. So again, we'll see in the end who's going to end up at this new high school. And if you're really talking about bridging gaps and bringing communities together, so far we have not done a very good job. Period.
Thank you.
Madam President, I have a question for Superintendent Miller.
She's having some connectivity issues, Trustee Miller. What's your question?
The placement of that you just talked about with teachers and support staff, custodial, all the different groups, that'll actually ripple across the entire district, will it not?
It will at secondary, yes. So elementary won't be touched in that as far as I know, but yes, at secondary, we will end up with a very good mix of people at from all four of our current schools at the two schools.
Right. So again, this doesn't go back to just being between Clark and Hammond High and Gavitt. It's an adjustment across. It'll be adjustment across both of the high schools, essentially the remaining high schools.
And the middle schools too. Yeah, because
middle schools as well.
Most secondary teachers are licensed 6 through 12. So yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Mamala, I have one more question to Dr. Green.
Yes.
But Dr. Green, you indicated that it wasn't true that Eggers Middle School only had 3 certified teachers. Well, that was reported to us at a school board meeting by Dr. Yander. Nobody refuted it, and that's been several months. And that's why I felt compelled and okay to repeat it. She stood up in her school improvement plan meeting, and that's what she said. And nobody, again, disputed it. And my comment when she made that was that it's all about resources. Evidently, our resources are not distributed equally. And no one said anything, and that's been months.
That's because what Dr. Yanders actually said was that she only had 3 subs for her building and that she was not able to do professional development and things like that because she only had 3 subs for her building. She did not say she only had 3 certificated teachers because that is simply not true.
Well, that's what was communicated to a lot of people that's what they heard at that meeting, and that has been a bone of contention with a lot of people. And finally, when you indicated the 29% ethnicity within our district, well, it still means 70.6% is white.
And
so, in my mind, that's a lot of white privilege. Thank you.
Be happy to go over those numbers with you.
Well, I'm looking at the number of people on it. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Dr.
Thank
Green,
goodness.
Dr. Green, thank you so much for putting this together for us. We really appreciate it. I know it's a lot of work, and again, it shows us where we need to go.
I also want to thank you, Dr. Green, for your hard work and all that you contribute. I know it's not an easy task. I know that it's not an easy job. Because individuals don't understand how the process works. They assume that they do, but they don't.
Thank you.
The school city of Hammond has always tried. The school city of Hammond has always tried to go out there and due diligence and recruit teachers through job fairs, etc. And I know it's been a challenge. And it probably may still become a challenge because the way that education is spoke upon, a lot of young people are not going into the field of education anymore. But I know that Dr. Green, Superintendent Miller is doing the best job that they can. With the bridging of the schools, Superintendent Miller and his administrative staff are doing a commendable job. It's a new school. It's a new high school. A new high school for Hammond. That all students and everyone has to be involved in. It's just not a new high school that's built in a certain district. That wasn't the premise of building that school there. It's a school for the whole district and city of Hammond, for all students. All right, are we completed with that item D, human resource presentation? Hello?
We are.
I'm fine.
Okay, are we ready for item E?
Yes.
There's no attachment.
There isn't, no, there's not. So this is just an update. My intention on, just an update for the board. I could have put it down in the superintendent report section, but put it up here. Essentially, we have, as a leadership team, been reading and taking in all the information that we can about reentry. We have had teams that have been working on it for different things that we talked about at the last meeting. We do have a draft of a plan. When we get down to the calendar section, I am going to ask the board to schedule a public work session so we can explain the plan in its entirety to the board and to the community. And then after that, I will, we'll have to have a meeting to vote on the plan. But one of the positive things that have come out of this is that the Lake County and Porter County superintendents have been working very closely together. And I'm very proud to say, not representing them as an organization, but just proud to be part of it, that we will all have the same fundamental solution for reentry. So the solution for Munster, the solution for Lake Central, the solution for Whiting are not going to be fundamentally different. They're going to be fundamentally the same, and there may be some specifics that are different. And our goal is to offer parents two options. One is to send their child to School City of Hammond 5 days a week. We will wear masks where appropriate, and we will be socially distanced as best as we can. And we have talked about this with the Lake County Department of Health, and they have agreed that this is a legitimate solution to do. Where essentially, in all the communal spaces, students and staff will be required to wear a mask. But if all the desks are facing in the same direction, students can remove their mask. And this guidance came from the Lake County Department of Health and their doctor who is in charge of it, which was what the state superintendent said to do. The state superintendent, Dr. McCormick, said, we're educators, we're not medical professionals, each county is different. Consult with your local Department of Health as to what the plan should be for your county. And so all the state superintendents are on the same call with the Lake County Department of Health. And we will actually have a letter that we all sign and draft. I will present it to the board soon when it's finished, indicating our unified intention with it. The other option for parents is going to be a virtual option. If parents don't feel comfortable with sending their child into our schools physically, they will have an option to do e-learning. So we're going to hash out all of those details for you in a public work session, how this works for special education, how this works for our ELL students, how this looks different in elementary and secondary, how are we going to do lunches, how are we going to do buses, how are we going to do athletics. We have all that, like we really do. It's too much to put into a board meeting. It would be 2 hours just on that one topic. So we have put a lot of thought. We've involved teachers. We've involved a whole bunch of people in gathering ideas on what's best to do moving forward, and respecting parents' decision in this. So ultimately, the parents will have the call to determine what's most comfortable for them. Whether for those parents that need their children to come to school 5 days a week because of employment or anything else, we will make the modifications we need to ensure their child is as safe as possible. For our staff, we're going to do the modifications we need to do to make sure our staff is safe as possible. And for those parents who feel that there's too much unknown and they just don't feel comfortable with it, we will have a e-learning option that moves. We can no longer have e-learning just be about previous work. We need to move forward with e-learning with the introduction of new material. We will have a intermediate plan if that's what, just so we're ready for an intermediate plan, where it's basically green, yellow, and red. Green is going to be the full 5 days back. Yellow would be an intermediate plan where half the kids come on certain days, and then red would be full e-learning. So we're prepared for all three of the scenarios, but according to the Lake County Department of Health guidance, the scenario we should be planning for is the 5 full days back. And doing that as safe as possible for students and staff. So in much more detail, more than probably anyone wants to know, like I said, it'll probably be an hour or two long public work session. We will be prepared to present all that to the board and with all those details.
Trustee Mamala.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. I'm glad to see, Superintendent Miller, that you are, formulating a plan. I know it's been challenging because we just don't know, what the next couple months or 6 months could bring us. So we have to have plan A, plan B, plan C. But you are starting, and your administrative staff are beginning to formulate a plan. And I know it's tough. It's tough for the parents. Parents have to get back to work. It's been a very challenging, sensitive time for just not the school city of Hammond, but all school corporations. And so I thank you. I thank you for that. I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right, on to item 4.
I believe Trustee King had a question.
Oh, did she? Okay, I didn't hear her.
We can move forward.
Okay.
Item number 4, public expression, first period, limited to items on the agenda.
Trustees, I do have one to, sorry, my laptop just locked. Let me log back in. I do have one to read. Okay, this is from Cindy Murphy. What does this resolution change? I assume she's referring to the anti-racism resolution. What does this resolution change? Anything? Is the school board of trustees ready to finally look at its data to not only disaggregate by race, ethnicity, and gender, but also by socioeconomic status? Only then can we know if this district is guilty of institutionalized racism. Is this board ready to admit the sins of the past and present in order to move forward so that there is social justice for every child in Hammond? We have heard at prior public work sessions on how there has been inequitable staffing at schools that have some of the highest poverty and minority populations. The community was told that this would be worked on over the summer. Will our most vulnerable students see the high-quality teachers they deserve when school starts, or will that status quo continue into the 2020-2021 school year? Don't let this resolution just be another piece of paper that is done in response to the time so everyone feels good. As to the financial report, at a prior board meeting, it was brought up that the operating referendum would run out in 2024. And where would the money come from to replace the $12 million budgeted for this calendar year? The word referendum was brought up, but quickly shot down by the president. The community needs to know, what will the school city of Hammond be able to trim? The community needs to know, will the school city of Hammond be able to trim another $12 million a year from its expenses? Or in the background, does the school board plan on going for a referendum in 2024? If the answer is that $12 million will be trimmed, a strategic plan would go a long way to assuring the community that school board will actually be able to trim that amount and is not actually kicking the can down the road like it has been in the past. That's it. No other comments.
Superintendent Miller?
President Mamala.
I will just have to say this with past trustee Murphy that served on the board for 12 years. There's a lot of those questions she can answer. All right, item 5, unfinished business. Item 5, unfinished business.
Trustees, yes, I have in front of you for your review and for the review of the public a first reading of the website accessibility policy. In our current website that we've had for several years is not compliant as it should be. We are moving to a new website that should debut in a few weeks. It is going to lower our costs too for hosting. We're going from about 20,000 a year down to about 8,000 a year. But one of the main benefits is this new website is fully ADA compliant and is fully compliant with all laws regarding website accessibility for those wanting to read our website who may have some sort of a disability. So that's one of the main reasons why we're switching, but the new website will be much easier to find information, and it looks a lot fresher too. So I've seen a draft of it, but we're looking to go live on July 1 for the new website. And this is the first read. You don't have to read it out loud, Manny, but like this is for the public's review, the website accessibility policy. And I have had our attorneys review it.
Okay, I had one question.
Yes.
So when, I'm sorry, President Mamala. I'm just tired of it. Hello,
I don't think Anna can hear you, Trustee King.
thank you.
Go ahead, Trustee King.
Just one item for the virtual meetings, if we continue with them. Will it be more accessible to get it from the website as opposed to going another direction? Because I've even had difficulty going on the website, going to our virtual meetings. So will that be more easy, friendly?
The draft I saw of it was a work in progress, but everything looks much easier to find. And there was a lot of duplication of where you could find things. We're removing the duplication. So I think for everyone, it will be easier to navigate the new website.
Because that's the biggest complaint I've heard, they can't find virtual meetings on the website. So I hope that upgrade is there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments on the website accessibility? Otherwise, it'll come back in our next meeting for second reading and approval.
I have nothing.
Nothing.
That's it for my
Nothing.
unfinished business.
Okay, item 6, the minutes. Trustees, you have received in board doc the approval of the minutes from March 3rd, 2020, executive session. May I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 3rd, 2020 executive session.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There is none. All in favor say aye.
Roll
Don't
call.
have to do roll call.
Roll call. Thank you for reminding me. Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Candelaria?
Yes.
Trustee Zulno?
Yes.
Trustee King?
No,
And Trustee Mamala? Yes. The approval of the minutes of the March 3rd, 2020 executive session has been passed. Item B, approval of the minutes of the March 3rd, 2020 school board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Madam President,
Trustee Candelaria?
I would like to make a motion for approval of the minutes from March 3rd, 2020 of the school board meeting as presented.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There is none. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Candelaria?
Yes.
Trustee Zulno?
Yes.
Trustee King?
no,
And trustee Mamala also votes yes. The approval of the minutes of the March 3rd, 2020 school board meeting has been approved. Item C, approval of the minutes of the March 17th, 2020 school executive session. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Trustee Zulno.
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes from the March 17th, 2020 executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
There has been a second. Is there any discussion? There is none. There has been a motion, a second, and no discussion. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller. Trustee Candelaria.
Yes.
Trustee Zulno.
Yes.
Trustee King.
No.
Trustee Mamala, yes. The approval of the minutes of the March 2020 executive session has been approved. Item D, approval of the minutes of the March 17th, 2020 school board meeting.
Madam President,
May I have a motion? Trustee Miller.
I would like to make a motion for the approval of the March 17th, 2020 school board meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There is none. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Trustee Candelaria.
Yes.
Trustee Zulno.
Yes.
Trustee King.
No.
And Trustee Mamala also votes yes. The approval of the minutes of the March 17, 2020 school board meeting has been approved. Item 7, the consent agenda. Superintendent Miller.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of the consent agenda, items A through C, including the personnel report and the addendum as presented.
Madam President,
Trustees? Yes, Trustee King.
thank you. I'm asking that the consent agenda, items A, B, and C be voted separately.
Okay, could you please repeat that, Trustee King? I
I'm
didn't hear
sorry.
you.
Okay, that item under the consent agenda, A, B, and C be voted separately.
A, B, and C?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Okay. Trustees, you have received in your board docs the consent agenda, items A through C. Items A through C upon the recommendation of the superintendent.
Madam President,
Yes, Trustee Miller.
I make a motion for the approval of the accounts payable as presented.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Discussion. Accounts payable,
Trustee King.
thank you.
Yes.
I would like to read into record our accounts payable register for the month. For June 23rd, our claims are $1,730,604.35. And our payroll claims are $3,043,736.20. And
There
under,
has been a motion. I'm sorry. We're just going with accounts payable.
yes, ma'am. And for my questions under accounts payable, I will table them, and I will just ask Mr. Miller for an explanation tomorrow. Is that okay? Rather than prolong the meeting.
Sure.
I'm gonna ask him a question tomorrow on accounts payable.
Yes. I mean, it's getting a little late, so I can hold it off and raise the questions with him tomorrow.
Well,
Or
yes,
whoever.
you can ask him a question tomorrow on accounts payable if you'd like.
Yes, that's mine.
All right, so on item A, there's been a motion and a second on accounts payable. And there has been discussion. Trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee Candelaria,
Yes.
trustee Zulno,
Yes,
trustee King,
Yes,
and trustee Mamala also votes yes. Accounts payable has been approved. Item B, payroll schedule and voucher. Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I
Trustee King,
move that our payroll schedule voucher be approved as presented.
Second.
thank you. There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There is none. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee Candelaria,
Yes.
trustee Zulno,
yes,
trustee King,
Yes,
and trustee Mamala, yes. Item B, payroll schedule and voucher has been approved. Item C, the personnel report.
Madam President,
Trustee Miller,
I move for the approval of the personnel report as presented.
second,
there has been a motion and a second. Discussion.
discussion.
Trustee King,
Thank you, Trustee Mamala. The new assignment for the Maywood principal, I would hope moving forward that that person gets the staffing that she needs in order for the school to be, for the school to move forward educationally as it should. In terms of assistant principals, social worker, aides, because we're finding, when we look at the data, the scores are extremely low, and it's going to take a lot of work on her part and a strong staff of people to bring Maywood School up to par. I applaud her, but I don't want her to feel like she's been set up to fail. And the only way she's going to succeed, she's going to need the staffing. So I'm thoroughly excited about that promotion. And then regarding these ADs, on this personal report, I am troubled that once again, the board will probably approve how systematically we are literally demoting and emasculating our males. For some reason, we won't allow them to retire with grace. We are asking them to work under somebody when they are just as qualified and effective as their counterparts. And I find that humiliating, and it doesn't sit well with camaraderie and bringing communities together. We have literally created two positions. I don't see where we even gonna save any money. The purpose was consolidating. ended up with 2. But now we literally have 4 people with additional salaries. And I'm just curious, does it add to our deficit? Because where's all this money coming from with creation of jobs? So that's my concern regarding the assistant ADs on this report, to emasculate male and not allow them to retire gracefully, especially in the facility that one literally helped to design, and now they're not really there to run it. Those are my comments, Madam President. Thank you very much.
All right, trustee King, so I'm clear. So do you still want to continue holding back 3?
No, I made my comments and I stand as I stated. I don't need you to
Okay,
interpret what I said. That's called gaslighting.
okay,
Thank you.
okay. No, I'm just asking because the way I understood it, you wanted 3 for single votes. I'm just
No,
making
you did
myself,
that.
I want to make.
You satisfied that request.
Okay,
You've already satisfied that, Trustee Mamala. Okay? We're voting on the personnel
all
report.
right.
You got your
Yes,
second. I've had discussion. Now you're ready to vote.
I understand that. I just want to make myself clear with you that I'm not misunderstanding you.
I appreciate
All
that.
right, okay? Because it's been very difficult hearing. I've been being cut off. I don't know what's going on here. All right. So on the personnel report, we've had a motion, we've had a second, and we've had discussion. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee Candelaria,
Yes.
trustee Zulno,
Yes,
trustee King,
No.
trustee Mamalo also votes yes. The personnel report has been approved. Item 8,
Madam
new
President,
business. Trustee Miller,
due to the length of this meeting, could we take like a 2-minute recess?
How about 5 minutes?
yes,
Yeah.
let's take a, okay, let's, who wants 3 minutes? Who wants 5 minutes? It doesn't matter to me.
5 minutes is fine. What?
5 minutes will be fine.
Because 5 minutes.
5-minute recess?
5 would
Correct.
fine with me.
Yep. Thank you.
President Mamala,
We will
President
now,
Mamala, in light of the fact
pardon?
that this is virtual, why don't you suggest a specific time so everybody can have an idea, because you won't be able to see one another. So just suggest a specific time that allows people to step away and come back and not miss something. So maybe even by my clock it says it's 8:46. So maybe suggest people back by 8:56.
That's 10 minutes. All we need is 5.
Okay, just have a clear time, and I think that might help.
8:55?
Okay, so at 8, it's 8:46, 5 minutes,
Okay.
8:41.
51.
We'll be taking a 5-minute recess. We will resume at 8:41.
Oh, my lips.
Did you want to mute your mic until they come on?
Huh?
Did you want to mute your microphone until everybody comes on?
I'm just, don't matter to me. I'm just singing and
Okay.
putting on my lipstick. Can the public hear me?
Yes.
Oh, well, tell me how to mute it.
Move the trackpad a little bit.
This thing?
No, the trackpad. This.
This?
Just move it a little bit. No, just move your finger across it. Okay. See the microphone on the left-hand side?
I ain't got my glasses on.
And you move this. There.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Are we back on?
I am.
Okay. Hello? Hello?
Hello, we hear you. I
We can hear you.
Okay.
think we're just waiting for
We
Manny.
will. Okay, okay, I'll wait for Manny.
I'm back.
Okay, I just want to let everyone know that I did step outside of my home, and to the east of us, it's getting very, very dark with clouds. I think we're going to be hit with a storm. So I suggest that we move through the meeting so everyone that is driving home can get home safely. All right. Item 8, new business. Item A, Superintendent Miller.
Trustees, I am asking you to decide on which member of the School Board of Trustees would like to fulfill the responsibility of serving on the Hammond Public Library Board. That's a position that I must have slipped through at the beginning of the year, but a trustee does need to, that's part of our agreement that a school city of Hammond trustee will sit on their board.
How often do they meet?
That's a really good question. I would imagine I'm not on their board.
The library board, they meet at least once or twice a month.
Do you know at what time?
Time, date?
I cannot give you the time, the date. But they do meet. I know it's been in the evenings in the past. I don't know what they've been doing since then.
I can, if the board wants to table this one because of finding that if nobody's wants to commit to it without that information, I can contact them and find out the questions.
But Mr. Miller,
Yeah.
I think I do have the time to do it because I don't work, you know. And just if it's okay with the board, I will volunteer if it's time conducive.
Okay.
Because
If
I,
not, you could bring up at another meeting and just resign the post and we can bring it up if it doesn't work for your schedule.
okay. Thank you.
Sure. So I guess my recommendation would be that Trustee Carlotta Blake King serve on the Hammond Public Library Board of Trustees. That's my recommendation.
I make a motion for Trustee Carlotta Blake King to be our appointee for the Hammond Public Library Board of Trustees.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote. Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Trustee Candelaria.
Yes.
Zulno.
Yes.
Trustee King.
Yes, and thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Trustee Mamala votes yes. Item 8, the Hammond Public Library Board of Trustees appointment is Trustee Carlotta Blake King. Congratulations, Trustee King.
Thank you.
You will be serving, I presume, with Mrs. Dent. I think Mrs. Dent is on the library board.
Yes,
I don't know. I think.
She is on board. Yes. She's on
Okay.
She is
All right.
secretary.
Okay. Item B, board approval of donations.
Madam President.
Hold on, I need to make a recommendation. Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Trustees, I am recommending the board approve the donations as presented in board docs. Of particular interest is a $50,000 donation from King's Hawaiian. And if it's okay with the board, I would like to show, so it's part of the record, the 3-minute spot of Christine Clarahan receiving this award. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. It's
right.
exciting. I saw it. I watched it on TV. Woo!
By today with our sponsor, King's Hawaiian. Join King's Hawaiian and No Kid Hungry in our fight against childhood hunger. Visit kingshawaiian.com to learn more.
Across the country, so many families are feeling the effects of the coronavirus pandemic, and with schools out for the summer and possibly into the fall, families that rely on school meals to feed their kids could be struggling.
But I had the chance to speak with a very special woman from a school district in Indiana who's working hard to make sure the kids in her community stay fed. What she didn't expect, a special surprise thanks to our sponsor, King's Hawaiian, that will make her mission a little easier. When the schools in Hammond, Indiana were ordered to shut down in March, Christine Clarahan and her food services staff jumped into action. The majority of students in their district depend on the schools for breakfast and lunch programs. Not to mention, many of those families are dealing with lost wages and struggling to make ends meet. So Christine and her team got creative, opening a drive-thru to continue feeding people in their community.
It wasn't an option not to serve during this time. It wasn't a question of when, it was like, how are we going to do this?
Rain or shine, even snow. Christine and her staff have served more than 280,000 meals since since the shutdown.
I remember just standing outside at first week, thinking, if I don't get COVID, I'm gonna get the flu.
She even found a way to keep things fun by wearing costumes, dressing up as a milk carton and an avocado.
If you can show like a positive attitude, then the staff can have that. And I think it's so important, not only for the kids, but the adults coming through.
Parents like Balsamo Niece, who has 7 kids, hasn't missed a single meal distribution.
I didn't think I was gonna have any kind of help. I thought we were just gonna struggle finding food.
Christine says she's only been able to continue this work through grants from organizations like No Kid Hungry. But even with those funds, she says it won't be enough.
Don't have backup money right now. We've used it to figure out some way because it's not an option not to feed the kids.
I know that anybody that's watching that has children, to imagine a child who goes to bed with their stomach hungry. Why does your job matter?
You're not going to worry about like math or chemistry if your stomach is empty. I truly believe that many in our community, they could not survive this.
So to help Christine, her mission.
You were saying school is out, summer is coming, but that doesn't mean your job's over.
No.
Our sponsor, Keith Hawaiian, had a big surprise in store. A donation of $50,000 to her school district as part of their partnership with No Kid Hungry.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Oh.
What does this mean?
We've been worried about money and how we can continue. That makes it a lot easier to, that's very exciting. Thank you.
Hope you feel the love. You are loved and so appreciated.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know what to thank you. I don't know what to say. This is the best day.
Christine told us with the extra money, her school district will be able to keep providing fresh produce for the kids and buy more supplies and food safety equipment. She is so amazing. That's awesome, Jenna. All right, you never know.
Wow.
That is so awesome.
Yes.
So awesome.
I had the pleasure of watching it on TV and taped it. Yes. Yes.
So certainly exciting, and thank you to King's Hawaiian for the being so generous towards us. I would have taken a lifetime supply for the school district of King's Hawaiian rolls, but the $50,000 is certainly much appreciated. We thank you so much.
Yeah, and also thank you to the Today Show.
Yes.
For the coverage.
Yes.
We appreciate
Yes.
that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, beautiful. All right, item B, board approval of donations. May I have a motion?
Oh, Board President. Trustee Mamala.
Yes.
Madam President,
Trustee Zulno.
I'd like to make a motion for board approval of donations.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There is none. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller.
Yes, yes, yes.
Trustee Candelaria.
Yeah.
Trustee Zulno.
Yes.
Trustee King. Trustee King.
Yes.
Thank you. And Trustee Mamala also votes yes. Board approval of donations has been approved. Item C, board approval of extracurricular purchases.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of the extracurricular purchases as presented in board docs.
Madam President,
Trustee Miller.
I make a motion for the approval of the extracurricular purchases as presented.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There is none. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Trustee Candelaria.
Yes.
Trustee Zulno.
Yes.
Trustee King.
Yes.
And Trustee Mamala also votes yes. Board approval of extracurricular purchases has been approved. Item D, Superintendent Miller.
Trustees, at the last board meeting, I mentioned to you that I was going to go back to the students, the students who would come into the New Hammond Central and ask them which logo and color scheme did they prefer. And I did send you the results yesterday. And let me share my screen here of the logo that they preferred, if that's okay, in color scheme. Sorry, it's taking a minute here. So the students, and we did eliminate some duplicate entries and took the most recent entry, selected this version of the wolf and the black, white, and silver as their preferred color scheme. It was somewhat close, but in both areas, this was what prevailed. So trustees, that I do believe I've completed my task in going back to the students to give you a basis to feel comfortable on which wolf and which color scheme. If you would like me to show you some of the other choices that were considered, I can do that. But these, as you saw in your board doc package, this was the selection that was first for both.
So the second attachment is that correct?
The one of the attachments details the results of the survey. The second attachment shows, this is the one I'm sharing on my screen, is the winning selection for both color and mascot in a variety of different formats.
Well, to begin, Madam President. Madam President?
She's been having trouble all night. Why don't you go ahead, Trustee King?
I'm very disappointed in the number of participants, considering the thousands of children that make up Clark High, Clark Middle, Eggers, Gavitt High, Gavitt Middle, and Hammond High School. I mean, 766 students, if I understand this correctly.
That's correct.
It's going to determine the fate of a logo or a mascot. Unbelievable. Thousands of students. 766 students is going to determine that fate. That's not enough participation. And secondly, may I give you the definition? And this definition was given to me by several parents of the urban definition of wolves. Mad dog, a pack of wolves that connotes gangs. And that's what we want to call our children. And although for some reason we can't, these parents aren't able to communicate that to the entire board because of the COVID and the way we're having our school board meetings and the survey. Because once again, survey has no faces. We don't know who this, but I'm telling you for a fact, I cannot and will not support this with only 766 students participating And the connotation in an urban community of wolves are mad dogs.
So
Pack
they,
of wolves. That connotation of gangs. And if this is how we want to label our children in an urban community, go for it. Because
so
I can support this.
the urban community is the one that selected the wolves first at both Morton and Hammond Central by far. Like it was the #1 choice of the community by far for both. So that you want to set it up this way, that if it gets voted like this, I think you're the one characterizing them like that. That is not what the majority of people.
Well, you're basically calling me a liar.
I'm not
telling
calling
you
you a
this.
liar. I'm telling you what
You
this
are. You're saying I'm giving you that definition. I'm telling you that this is what the people in the surrounding community have come to me with. So don't say it's Carlotta King. It is the community who we constantly say we are trying to please. So don't call me a liar.
I'm not calling you a liar. I'm just suggesting that the majority of people from both surveys selected wolves, and it wasn't even close. So I think that you're saying to them that I'm not going to say that they were selecting it because they thought it was a gang thing. That when we looked at the feedback about why they liked it, they liked the idea that wolves stick together, and they're going to see something through. Like that was the feedback we got on the surveys, was those kind of notions,
Well,
not about gangs.
Once again, the way we have been communicating with the public is insufficient. And that survey, again, if you read any of those emails from the Morton community, from the Hammond High community, that we have, if you read them, they are basically saying the same thing. The survey was flawed. There wasn't enough people that was able to participate. And for whatever reason, based on our population, school population, 3,400 people could not determine mascots, name of schools. It just couldn't have been that way. Again, there's no face to this. It's numbers. A skewed survey.
Madam President?
It may aid the discussion in terms of your protocol to, at this point, because you do have an item on your agenda to take that first step of soliciting a motion, a second, and then is when you engage in discussion. Discussion comes after the motion has been, there's a motion presented and a second.
So trustees, my recommendation would be to approve the mascot and color selection as selected by the results of the survey as presented in board docs.
President Mamala, are you able to hear the discussion? Trustee King, you may want to, in this instance, because it seems as if President Mamala is not capable of hearing, you may want to be the one to solicit if there is a motion or not as the vice president.
Am I mandated to do that?
Well, that would be the protocol. That would be the proper protocol, you know, at this time.
Trustee Mamala, we absolutely can't get her.
It seems as if Trustee Mamala can't hear her and she's not.
I understand if that is the proper protocol.
Yeah, I think at this time, I know it's a little unique, but it seems as if Trustee Mamala is not.
If I ask for a motion
to
pass this.
No, you're asking for a motion. You can.
I'm telling you ahead of time, I can't support it.
Well, all you're doing is asking for a motion.
If I'm going to ask for a motion for something I'm not going to support.
No, that's not, you can ask for a motion. You're not asking for a motion that it be passed, and you're not asking for a
Now, give me
motion
the
to be
reasons
turned in.
why.
You're just simply asking for the motion.
If I made a motion, it would be a motion to table.
Anybody can make any motion of any.
So that's my motion, to
Any
table this
person,
discussion,
any person can make any of
because
the.
it's not going to bring any kind of unity within our community. It bothers me that
Trustee King, you're all over the place too. Now I've got no one.
I can hear you. I can hear
I
you.
can hear you, Trustee Zolno.
well, that's my motion, to table it.
Okay, then what you need to do, Trustee King, is ask if there is a second to the motion.
Well, I can't make the motion. I have to ask for a motion.
You can make that motion and you can ask if there's a second to your motion. And if not, then you'll have to move on to another motion.
Thank you. I make a motion that we table this discussion based on the concerns of the Millwood and Hammond High community as being labeled as mad dog.
Now you can ask for us if there is a second to the motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
Trustee King, would you like to ask again, just to clarify if there's a second to the motion?
Is there a second to the motion?
Trustee King, that would mean that the motion failed. You can then ask the rest of the trustees if there is another motion that another one of the trustees would like to put forward.
Thank you, Attorney Conrad. The motion failed for a lack of a second. Is there another motion on the floor from the remaining board members?
I'd like to make a motion for the color and logo selection for the Hammond Central High School based upon Superintendent Miller's surveys. Anna, your mic is off.
Anna, your mic is still off. I second the motion.
Okay, there has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Discussion.
Trustee King.
Thank you. I'm just going to reiterate what I said for the record. Obviously, the concerns of the Maywood and Hammond High community and others continually falls on deaf ears with this board. It's unfortunate, it's sad, when we're trying to bridge good communities together or what have you, that 766 students is going to determine the fate of a $110 million high school that sits primarily in a Black and brown community. And children, primarily, we're going to be serving, will be referred to as mad dog and gang, and a pack of wolves.
I don't see it as a mad dog. I don't see any gang affiliation at all. At all.
But Trustee Mamala.
And I'm speaking. And the number of students that will be coming to the new school will be Hispanic students. The school is going to be very, I'm talking. The school is going to be quite, I am talking. The school is going to be quite diverse. The school, and I keep saying this, the school was just not built for a certain district. It's a new high school for all of Hammond, for all students of every race, every culture, and every gender. Now, there's been a motion.
Trustee
There's been a
Mamala.
second.
Trustee Mamala.
Madam President.
Mamala. Trustee
Trustee
Mamala.
Miller.
Now, we're not
Trustee
following
Miller.
protocol. We're not following protocol. Ma'am.
Madam President, I have a comment and a question. My comment is that we would please bear in mind a motion was made just a few months ago to rename the high school with less than a dozen pieces of feedback from the community. With a dozen letters, we there was a motion made to rename the high school. So that's my comment. We have over 700 people, students have answered the survey. And then my question is to Superintendent Miller, could you talk about how the survey was conducted itself? I read through the notes and I understand, but for the community, so they would understand how this survey was distributed a little bit differently than the one in the past.
So sure, I'd be happy to. We sent the survey out by multiple means. The first one was we have an email account for every single student who's secondary level in Hammond, and we sent the link to the survey to every single student's email account. The next thing we did was we utilized Parent Square, multiple times over the time the survey was posted, and we notified parents that their child had an opportunity to fill out the survey, and we forwarded them the link, and we also told them that it was in their school email. We also posted on the social media, again, mostly for parents, to be able to tell their kids, hey, if you want to have input on which WOOF, that had already been decided, the fact that it was a WOOF, and which color scheme to go onto it. The survey itself had 3 different WOOF characterizations, and it had 4 different color schemes. And students were able to select which characterization they liked best, and then for each one of those, which color scheme they thought was best. And that's how we were able to get to the result.
And Superintendent Miller, so tonight we're just voting on the style of the WOOF because the WOOF has already been chosen, that was already approved, and then the colors. That's
Correct.
what the students were voting on.
That's it.
And the colors again are, Superintendent Miller?
Black, white, and silver. Similar to
Those
black,
are
white.
sharp colors. If anybody follows pro football, that's the color of the Raiders. And those uniforms are sharp.
Yeah.
That black, silver, white, that's a sharp color. All right, there's been a motion, there's been a second, roll call vote. Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Trustee Candelaria.
Yeah.
Trustee Zulno.
Yes.
Trustee King.
No.
And Trustee Mamala also votes yes. Item D, color and logo selection for Hammond Central High School has been approved. Item E, Superintendent Miller.
Trustees, the next 2 items are identical except for the school difference, but I am asking you to approve item E, a memorandum of understanding between the school city of Hammond and Eggers and Geminus Regional Health Systems as part of their drug prevention and anti-suicide program.
May I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the memo of understanding between the SCH Scott Middle School and Geminus Regional Health Systems.
This one was for Eggers first. This one's for
I
Eggers.
apologize. Memo of understanding between Eggers Middle School and Geminus Regional Health Systems.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There is none. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Trustee Candelaria.
Yes.
Trustee Zulno.
Yes.
Trustee King.
Yes.
And trustee Mamala also votes yes. The memorandum of understanding between the school city of Hammond and Eggers Middle School and Geminus Regional Health System has been approved. Item F.
Item F is the same, but for Scott. Trustees, I am recommending you approve the MOU between School City of Hammond Scott Middle School and Geminus Regional Health Systems.
Madam President,
Trustee Miller.
I make a motion for the approval of the MOU between School City of Hammond, Scott Middle School, and Geminus Regional Health Systems as presented.
Second.
Is there a second? There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There is none. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Trustee Candelaria.
Yes.
Trustee Zulno.
Yes.
Trustee King.
Yes.
And trustee Mamala also votes yes. The memorandum of understanding between the School City of Hammond and Scott Middle School and Geminus Regional Health Systems has been approved. Item G.
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of the Centric service contracts. This is a 3-year renewal with a company that's basically owned by AT&T to continue our basic phone line service. As you probably know, most of our phones go through our computer network, but we still have to have a basic phone line system for emergency purposes in each of the buildings. That's what this is for.
Madam President,
Trustee Miller.
make a motion for the approval of the Centrex service contracts as presented.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There is none. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Trustee Candelaria.
Yes.
Trustee Zulno.
Yes.
Trustee King.
Yes.
And trustee Mamala also votes yes. The approval of Centris service contracts has been approved. Item H.
Trustees, this also goes to, item H goes to support our phone system infrastructure. I'm asking for your approval of the contract between School City of Hammond and WOW Business for our SIP trunks.
Madam President. Madam President. Should I just continue, Superintendent Miller?
Yes, go ahead, Trustee Zulno.
I make a motion for the approval of the contract between the School City of Hammond and WOW Business.
Second. Manny, you want to call the roll?
Now, that should be Carlotta, right?
Yeah, Miss King would need to call the vote.
Trustee King.
It's been moved in second that the approval of the contract between WOW Business be approved. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee King, you would need to run through each of your fellow trustees to take your vote.
Okay, trustee Candelara,
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee Kuzno,
Yes.
trustee Mamala, absent.
Well,
Trustee
maybe
King,
we can
yes.
see if she can hear you. Why don't you have her wave?
I can't see her.
Okay.
Can you all see her? I can't see her.
I can see her. Anna,
I can't.
Okay.
your sound is off, Anna.
Oh, God.
I think in this case, what we can do is we can record her as having abstained from the vote, and you can move along to the next item.
The record will show that trustee Mamala has to abstain. Is that the word?
Mm-hmm.
Abstain from the vote due to malfunction of this device. All in favor? Is that it? All in favor is aye.
No, you're good. That's so you can go to the
Oh, we're
next
good.
agenda item. Mhm.
Okay,
Thank
fine.
you.
The next one is, go ahead, Mr. Miller, I'm sorry.
No problem. Trustees, I am recommending the approval of item I. additional grant money through GoFundMe to help feed school kids now through School Nutrition Foundation grant.
Board, can I get a motion and a second on the approval of both fund help feed school kids now?
Madam
Trustee
Vice President,
Yes? Did I get a motion?
Go on, Manny.
Madam Vice President,
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would like to make a motion for approval of GoFundMe Help Feed School Kids Now School Nutrition Foundation grant as presented.
Thank you. Do we get a second? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Miller. Roll call vote. Trustee Candelera,
Yeah.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Kuzno,
Yes.
Trustee King, yes, and Trustee Mamala abstains due to malfunction of device. Mr. Superintendent?
Trustees, I am recommending the approval of item J, the Gen Youth Grant for Edison Elementary COVID food service.
Board, do I have a motion and a second?
Madam Vice President,
Go ahead. I'm
I'd
sorry.
like to make a motion for the approval of the Gen Youth Grant for Edison Elementary COVID food service.
May I have a second? It's been moved and properly, thank you. It's been moved and properly second for the approval of the Gen Youth Grant for Edison Elementary School. Roll call vote. Roll call vote. Trustee Candelera,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Kuzno,
Yes.
Trustee King, yes, and Trustee Mamala abstains due to malfunction of device. Mr. Miller?
The last item under new business, trustees, is the approval of the contract between NIET and the School City of Hammond to provide the teacher evaluation system. This is paid for out of Title II funds. Continuation, it's not an increase or a continuation of the contract from the previous year.
Board members, can I get a motion on item K?
Madam Vice President.
Yes, Trustee Kuzno?
No, that's Trustee Candelera.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Candelera, go right ahead.
I would like to make a motion for approval of contract between NIET and the School City of Hammond as presented.
I will second that.
Thank you, Trustee Kuzma, for the second.
You're welcome.
Any discussion? There's no discussion? Ready for roll call vote? Trustee Candelera?
Yes.
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Kuzno?
Yes.
Trustee King? Yes. Trustee Mamala abstained due to malfunction of device. Mr. Miller?
The next item, trustees, is to select the calendar. I'm recommending that I need a public work session. And we do have some holidays coming up the second half of the week of the 29th. We have likely the board meeting would be on the 7th. It's kind of up to the board's pleasure. I really need a little more time to get the plan finalized. If we did the public work session later in the week and then we actually voted on it on the 21st of July, what do you guys think about that? Or do you want to actually vote on it on the 7th?
What's the pleasure of the board?
This is the reentry plan?
Yes.
Yeah, I would be okay waiting to the 21st because I know how fluid the situation is, and things are still changing daily. So I think the 21st would be okay.
So if I propose that we do the 7th and the 21st as our board meetings for July, and then could we have the public work session on a certain day the week of the 12th? Maybe that Tuesday, the 14th? Does that work for everybody?
That's the 12th? Is what day is that on?
Well, it'd be the week of the 12th. I was suggesting Tuesday, the 14th for the public work session on the reentry plan.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
will we still be doing virtual meetings?
It's not my intent. It's really up to the board's pleasure. I don't think we need to based on the executive order ending July 1st. So it would be face-to-face in my opinion, but it's really a board decision.
Board, with this, may I speak? I don't know how to speak now, I'm in charge. With the reentry program, we certainly need to have the public present to hear for themselves, because even right now, people are calling me. I don't know where they're getting this information from, but they need to hear it from us in an open meeting. Perhaps we could do it at the ACC. It's a bigger place. We can spread out. If the issue is, social distancing, this is too important not to have the public present. Because these are their children that we are talking about re-entering into the school after COVID-19. So that would be my my recommendation to the board, that we have it open to the public, perhaps go to the ACC so everybody can spread out and listen to the process.
Superintendent Miller,
Yes, Trustee Candelaria.
I had a question. So you would still have to follow the CDC guidelines, and people would be required to wear masks when attending these meetings, correct?
We can do that, yes.
With a certain capacity?
We could even pass out disposable masks for those who don't have them. But yes, we could mark rows and seats and things like that. The auditorium there, if you open the balcony, it seats 1,300. So I'm not sure we get that big a crowd. So we're
not gonna get that big of a crowd.
Yeah, so we could mark off every other row and do things like that.
And that would apply to the board as well with social distancing.
Yeah, the stage is huge. We could spread out. So, we would be within that 6 feet.
It is very big, yep.
The stage is huge. And one other question, what if a board member still wanted to do virtual? Would they have that option?
We are looking for guidance on that. I think in terms of what the impact of that is on the board, it's still not clear. So
Okay.
I anticipate that the access counselor will give us some further guidance before too long.
Okay. Well, and when does school start again?
Right now, it's starting on August. Let me get the date right. I believe we moved it up a week, August 12th.
So that basically gives the parents 30 days or less to make a decision as to whether or not they're going to return to a school district. So.
That's true. I mean, I think everybody's been thinking about it though, and basically what they're going to hear from us is just more detail of what I shared tonight. Like, if you're going to send your child to school, this is what it's going to look like. If you want to do e-learning, this is what it's going to look like.
And in terms of the state count, how will that be determined? I passed on that. Trustee Kuzno, we're all exhausted. We can discuss that at another day.
No, you can keep going. I'm fine.
I'm sorry.
I'm fine, really.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think the question was, how does virtual learning impact ADM? And at least for the first semester, we know that if a student is going to be selecting e-learning where they previously were a brick and mortar student, the governor did say we would be able to fund them at 100%. Now, will that last into the spring semester, or those are all true unknowns? Because if Governor Holcomb gets reelected, I don't want to speak for the man, but there is some perception that what he promised after the election, there may be a different reality. So who knows? I can say for the fall semester confidently that it will not hurt our funding is if a student selects e-learning versus brick and mortar.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of the board?
I have none.
No.
So
So
we're
we have a
basically just setting on the dates and the times, location or mode of delivery kind of is TBA, depending on what sort of guidance we get from the
Right.
Access Council, correct?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
So we're saying the 7th, the 14th, and the 21st, with the 14th being at the ACC for the public work session.
7th, 12th, and 14th.
No, 7th, 14th, and 21st.
Oh,
Right.
21st, okay, okay, I transposed it. Are we ready to move on? Item 10, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes.
Yes. I have 2 items for public expression for item 10. The first is from Cindy Murphy. The question on the survey was, I am open to identity changes that would accommodate students coming from other schools. It was not, in bold, do I want to change the name of Morton High School? Who was Governor Oliver P. Morton? He was one of the first governors to send troops in support of President Lincoln. Fought legislators in his own state who wanted to keep slavery in place. In 1874, Morton addressed a crowd at the Cornerstone laying for the movement at the Soldiers National Cemetery in Gettysburg. The rebellion was madness. It was the insanity of states, the delirium of millions, brought on by the pernicious influence of human slavery. The people of the South were drunk with the spoils of the labor of 4 million slaves. This is why it is so important to let the community know the rationale for each of the proposed names so the community can make a well-informed decision. The community should also know what is involved in rebranding a school and the associated costs. Further, how those costs will be paid. We all know that the community is opposed to more bonds, including general obligation bonds, which only have to be approved by the school board. Only after receiving this information will the community be able to make a well-informed decision. Personnel report provides a lot of changes in downtown administration. Will programs like Mandarin continue? All right. The second is from Greg Erminger. On the naming of the school, it was told to us the procedure and the timeline for the naming of the new school board at the branding meeting on February 19th, 2020. The school name and mascot has been approved in previous meeting. Last meeting it was told to us that the students would be naming the colors and choosing the mascot style. What is the meaning of a wolf? The symbol for living instinctively and intuitively. As a spirit animal, the wolf symbolizes instinct, intelligence, and ingenuity. A wolf sighting is a reminder to rely on our instincts and to trust our intuitive abilities. Wolves mirror our need to sometimes separate ourselves from the pack. Thank you. Those are the only 2 comments.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Item number 11.
We've had a long meeting, but the only thing I would like to highlight is that 2 of our administrators were singled out and awarded as local heroes by Clarity Clinic, Northwest Indiana. The very first winner was Mr. Dave Borsitz, who serves as the Dean of Students up at Clark. And the second was Christine Clarahan, in recognition of everything she's been doing through her leadership for our food service department. So congratulations to Mr. Borsitz and Ms. Clarahan.
Great job, everybody.
Congratulations.
The other thing I would like to mention is, I know we've been talking a lot about surveys, but we just sent 3 more surveys out this week. 1 to staff members, 1 to parents, and 1 to students to gather their feedback on reentry and how e-learning went. So about half the questions are about what went well and what were the challenges with e-learning, and the other half of the questions are about your feelings on coming back in the fall. So I will be sharing the results of those with the board when they are completed.
Thank
That's it
you.
for my reports.
Any questions to Mr. Miller from the board? Mr. Miller, again, as you stated, the hour is late. Would you consider putting on our next month's agenda, the report on the virtual academy and how many students actually graduated. Give us a little more update, because I noticed in accounts payable, we spent quite a bit of money on hotspots. And the issue with the sixth grade merger, I know it doesn't come forward until later on, but folks are asking, about the sixth grade merging into elementary school. So could that possibly be on the agenda? And do we have, again, STEM state certification for the new high school? Could we discuss that at our next school board meeting as well?
Yeah, we can discuss STEM certification.
Okay, and, oh God. So those are my questions to you. Any other questions from the board to our superintendent?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Any reports from the board?
No.
I have a question to trustee Mamala. She indicated at the last school board meeting that we would have a timetable on superintendent's evaluation. I know she can't hear me, but for the record, I felt compelled to bring it up. We should have had some kind of timetable, because August will be here before we know it, for the record. Okay. Are all minds clear? Is there any more business? So can we call for an adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
No, hello.
Oh, there's
Hello.
our president. We can't, President Mamala, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I completely missed most of this meeting because I was cut off on this computer.
We noticed
What
the
is
record. Go ahead.
What is transpiring? Because I don't know. I got cut off on H and on. So I don't know what's going on.
Attorney Conrad instructed me to carry on the business as vice president. Everything was voted on from, from H on down. We did establish our upcoming board meetings, and perhaps Mr. Miller can email them to you, or we can take the time to share that with you. It's up to you.
It's fine with me that basically on the 7th, 14th, and 21st, we'll have meetings. The 14th is where I would like to have a public work session for the reentry plan. That gives us a little time to take feedback from the questions that the board asks for a vote on the 21st. And basically, we are awaiting guidance from the public access counselor as to the method of the meetings for July.
So on July the 7th. Now, before the COVID, we did have discussion on having the meeting up at Clark.
Well, the discussion was that we have it at the ACC because we could really, really spread out. It's a good place.
Social distancing is going to be critical.
It's going to be critical, and ACC would be able to accommodate that. We have the lower level and the balcony as well, and the stage is tremendously large for the board members to spread out. And Attorney Conrad is going to even look into whether or not the board members can still go virtual during this public meeting.
Okay, so we don't know where we're going now for the 7th, right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry I missed the meeting, but I don't know what's going on with this technology on this thing. I don't know.
What I'm going to clarify, Trustee King.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What I will clarify for all of you is not whether you're going to have folks present and you all be virtual. It would be a question of how you might proceed if you have one or more who feel the need to be virtual and not be present. that would be kind of the hybrid question that I think the access counselor is hoping, that we're hoping the access counselor will provide some additional guidance on. Because up to this point in time, there has not been the authority to do virtual voting from persons who are not physically present.
So you're saying once the governor opens up the building and a board member feels safer to do virtual, you might not be able to vote?
That would be the question I think that is going to have to be addressed moving forward.
Thank you.
The state of emergency ends July 1st, so if there's no accommodations made, then I think the expectation would be everyone has to be in the same room.
Gotcha. Trustee Mamala, you can close the meeting.
Okay, so we don't know where we're going on the 7th. Am I right?
Right.
I
Okay.
believe the locations to be determined.
What?
The locations to be determined.
TBA.
Okay.
TBA.
What, Trustee King?
Oh, I'm sorry. TBA. No, that's wrong.
TBD.
Right. We're tired.
I think we're all tired, and we need to go home.
Absolutely.
Madam President, we're on number 12.
Okay, so let's call for adjournment.
I so move.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. If you're traveling home, be safe.
Let's find me breakfast.
Right? I'll meet you for breakfast.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Be
Burned up
safe.
my
Be careful.